for a number of years. So some news today from Utah football that was unexpected, but we'll get into that. And ultimately, some other staff changes under Morgan Scalley, the new leader of Utah football. So we'll do some college football on the show today. We'll do some college basketball on the show today. The Utah men's basketball team went down to Provo over the weekend and utilized some surprising shooting from three, quite frankly, to stay in the game until they couldn't because it just wasn't sustainable. A.J. DeBonsa is quite a player. And that BYU basketball program, that train is not stopping anytime soon. They currently are hosting a top 5 recruit for the game tonight. It is a big one in Provo. The number 1 team in the country, and they're undefeated, Arizona, will take on BYU tonight at 7 o'clock. The one thing BYU does not have is a signature win, and this certainly would be that over the best team in America. Koa Pete, a really, really good player. If you're a Jazz fan, you're going to have to start tuning in to watch some of these prospects. Jazz are off tonight. They're going to be back in action against the Clippers. Since you and I last spoke, Yusuf Nurkic has turned into Nikola Jokic with his 3rd straight triple-double, which is pretty wild. Shedeur Sanders is a Pro Bowler because that's a weird dynamic of pro football. Drake May, of course, is busy playing in a Super Bowl, so Shedeur Sanders is going to replace him in the Pro Bowl. So a lot to do. The Utah Mammoth in action tonight. They're on the road against Tampa Bay. That game's at 5 o'clock Mountain Time. Drop of the puck. Night off for Utah basketball. Night off for the Utah Jazz as well. Again, the Clippers are going to roll into town tomorrow. So a lot to do on the show today. Colton Swan, the new defensive coordinator for the Utes, will be our first guest today. Colton's joined the show before, but not as the defensive coordinator. It's a new promotion for Colton Swan. A lot of people believe he's a rising star in this business, so excited to catch up with him. Robert Turbin, who was an unbelievable college running back and spent some time with the Seattle Seahawks, will stop by today. We'll talk some football with Turbin. And then my friend Casey Evans, who played safety at the U and is now the head coach of the Olympus Titans football program, will join us today. Casey, really good dude. Excited for this opportunity for him. Of course, he is a safety. He knows Morgan Scalley and knows the Utah football program well. So 3 football guests today on what has turned into be kind of like a football Monday after the conference championship games over the weekend with Colton Swan, Robert Turbin, Casey Evans, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners. And for those of you watching on YouTube, I've hired a 16-year-old producer. His name is Porter Larson. It is the weirdest day every single year when you roll in the studio after having shaved your head.
The one day a year in which I cut my hair, yeah.
How long has this been a tradition for you?
Almost forever. I literally growing up would grow my hair out, and then every spring or summer would usually shear it off.
It's jarring when you walk in. You don't even look like yourself. Because for our listeners, if you tune in on YouTube, Porter typically has like flowing locks like a 70s guitar player, and then suddenly he's bald, and it's just the weirdest thing.
Yeah, my mother used to call me a hair farmer because it grows quick too. I'll have a flow in a month or so. That's how it is.
Is it liberating? Do you feel liberated today?
Oh, it's a lot easier. You know, you can just, you don't have to do anything. Not that I curled my hair or anything, but it's a lot less maintenance. It feels good. Usually it's kind of a spring or summer thing, but we're not having a winter, so it felt good to knock it out.
As you recall, during COVID, I let the locks loose. Got long, got weird, man bun situation. It was COVID. We were all going through a lot of stuff there. And when I pulled the plug and actually went back to it, felt really good. Yeah. I did the thing. I wanted to see what it was like to have long hair once. I did it once. I'm not interested in going back.
Yeah, the second it gets windy or there's something like that, I almost shave it that day.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's a little impromptu. Sometimes it's scheduled for a wedding or something. But outside of that, yeah. Don't pay for haircuts. You don't have to.
It's also economical. As a Jets fan, it's easy for me to take Seattle in the Super Bowl. As a Cowboys fan, do you have a lean of any?
I've always been a big Pats hater as well, and that's partly because they were so good. But the Seahawks have been good for this past decade or so as well, right? So for me, it comes down to rooting interest in local players. It comes down to friends around me, a lot of which are Seahawks fans. So I'll kind of be cheering for them in that regard. Connor O'Toole, of course, a Ute there, a bunch of former Utes and Aggies and Cougars that have played at Seattle, and then a couple local connections in New England. But I think I'm leaning Seattle. New England's had their time, and it seems like they're going to have plenty more.
Seattle is your favorite. Some sports books have already moved up to 5 points. So, of course, we'll get you ready for the Super Bowl. Reminder, you can hear it on our radio station. Our first guest today will be the defensive coordinator of the Utah football program, Colton Swan. But before Colton stops by, courtesy.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah.
Let's just get to it. It's time for the opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN 700 with Prize Picks.
Big game is almost here. There's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And since the big game is right around the corner, that also means it's your last chance to get into the football action before next season. So close the season right out with Prize Picks, getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. You can now find your community on Prize Picks with a new social feeds feature. You can share Prize Picks with your friends. Copy lineups from winners with a single click. You can copy lineups or use them as inspiration for your own picks. You can even follow Prize Picks partners like us and tail or fade our picks with just one click. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup, because on Prize Picks, it is good to be right. All right, so we saw one awesome football game yesterday and one football game just evolve into chaos, and you feel bad for Bronco fans. We have a lot of Bronco fans in our market, of course, based off proximity, and we do not have an NFL team here in Salt Lake, so a lot of people have gravitated towards the Broncos. You feel bad for them. Step number one is you lose your starting quarterback, and that game would have looked different with Bo Nix. It would have. But Jarrett Stidham, it's hard. I've heard a lot of people just crack on him. Like this was all on him. That second half, like Josh McDaniels called a play on third down for Drake May to roll out and throw it out of bounds. Like once that blizzard hit, neither team was going to do much of anything. So I have a hard time sitting here today and cracking on Jarrett Stidham that much. Was he good? No, he wasn't. And I feel bad for Garrett Bowles and all the Utes. There are a lot of Utes on that roster, not as many as there used to be, but we have a lot of Utes down in Denver. And Garrett Bowles, your Walter Payton Man of the Year, friend of the show, one of the best offensive linemen in pro football. Of course, I wanted to see him advance to a Super Bowl. And, you know, obviously the Jet fan in me does not want to see New England do anything at all. If we're honest, New England was the better team. And if we're honest, New England's been the better team pretty much all year long. I would begrudgingly say it has been unbelievably impressive to watch this turnaround. And you have to give Robert Kraft a lot of credit. Once he realized Mike Vrabel was going to be available, he moved on from Gerard Mayo after 1 year. That must have been a hard thing to admit, like, hey, I got that one wrong. But this iteration of the Patriots, I will begrudgingly say, is a lot more likable than the last one. Drake May, there's a lot to like about this kid, and I think the future is very, very bright. As long as Mike Vrabel is their coach and Drake May is their quarterback, I feel like New England's going to be in the mix for another 10, 15 years. After just a few years of, and it hasn't been pretty, you know, for the past 3-4 years, but that is not a lot of time between what appears to be, well, what was a generationally special run and what appears to be possibly another one ahead of us. And there are so many teams that cannot figure it out. There are 4 teams in pro football that have never been to a Super Bowl. New England under Robert Kraft is about to go to their 11th. So, again, Jet fan here, I have no desire to see them win it, but I will tip my cap at greatness, and you have to be very, very impressed. 9-0 on the road. For a quarterback in his second year, a defensive resurgence, those guys are nasty. I mean, look, the Broncos' defense has been nasty as well, and I know a lot of people, and I've heard a lot of this morning, cracking on New England for what, quite frankly, has been a very anemic offensive performance throughout the course of their run to the Super Bowl. But they also took on 3 excellent defensive football teams, Chargers, Jesse Minter, Texans, D'Amico Ryan, and then the Broncos defense is nasty. All you have to do is just do enough to get it done to win. You don't have to necessarily outshoot the other team like we saw Seattle did to the Rams. So give them a lot of credit. Okay, coming up February 8th, it's going to be a 4:30. Well, they list it as a 4:30 kick. If you've ever watched the Super Bowl, the pomp and circumstance probably pushes it closer to 5 o'clock. NBC will have the TV coverage for you. And, of course, you can hear the game on our radio station. So the second half basically made that thing unwatchable. And if you were there, I had a couple buddies there, our buddy McKinley Oswald, Garrett Bowles' uncle, in attendance. Miserable conditions that just made it hard for either team to do much of anything. When they showed the highlights of the first half, while they were actually, like, if you didn't know, if you were watching the second half and you hadn't seen a minute of the first half and they showed a highlight of it, you'd be like, that's a different game. That's not today, because the conditions were just chaotic. So credit New England for doing just enough, and you feel bad for the Broncos because it's hard to get there, but under Bo Nix and Sean Payton, they appear to have a good future ahead of them. The nightcap was the far superior game, and it was a heavyweight fight. I mean, this was punch after punch after punch, two really good teams, two really entertaining teams. And Matt Stafford just completed a historic year. What was it, 52 touchdowns and 9 picks? I mean, both of these quarterbacks, quite frankly, now Darnold's going to be the guy that gets all the attention because he's now going to the Super Bowl. But this was a battle of two redemption stories. Now, Stafford's redemption arc was culminated with the Super Bowl a few years ago. Darnold's probably is about to be culminated because Seattle's a favorite here. But Matt Stafford, once upon a time, was kind of thrown away as, all right, dude has a big arm, but he's surrounded by incompetence in Detroit, and he's probably going to be the guy that just ends up leaving the game with all this unfulfilled potential. And then Sean McVay goes and rescues him with the Jared Goff trade. They actually went to the Super Bowl with Goff, but he saw what he could do with Stafford. They go to the Super Bowl. They win the thing. And now Matt Stafford is a Hall of Famer. Now, adding a second Super Bowl to his resume, and he's 38 years old now. He does have 1 year left on his deal. My guess is we're going to do the whole thing during the offseason, the song and dance of what's next, and is he coming back? And he actually ends up coming back because of how awesome he just was. But they have weapons all over the place. Puka Nacua, our local guy, just is the second player in NFL history to have 2,000 yards from scrimmage, including the playoffs. Cooper Kupp did it during his Triple Crown year. But that was an awesome football game. But the career arc and redemption story of Sam Darnold really is awesome. You don't have to be a Seahawks fan to appreciate it. And here's the thing. He's 28 years old. Like, Seattle has their quarterback for the next 10 years if they want him. And it's a great lesson because oftentimes things don't work out right away. But if you believe in yourself and cut out the noise, at some point, you will have your moment. And Sam Darnold has his. Wildly impressed with the Seahawks and their ability to punch back, because that game felt like it was over for both sides a bunch of different times. Both Sean Payton and Sean McVay have some questions to answer about some fourth down questionable calls. But I thought we had an excellent NFC Championship game. And unfortunately, weather detracted from what probably could have been a better game in the AFC. But we have the Seattle Seahawks. We have the New England Patriots to battle for the World Championship in pro football, the Super Bowl coming up on February the 8th. All right, we'll catch a break. Coming up next, Utah football has a new GM, but we'll catch up with their new defensive coordinator. Colton Swan is our guest. We've got Robert Turbin and Casey Evans. We've got a busy Monday show, and it's good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. Didn't you tell me that Colton Swan likes to ride himself a horse? And I figured we were going to get some sort of Porter Larson classic country tune in honor of our next guest. What's going on?
I was going to actually play like some Chris Ledoux or something.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
He's a rodeo man.
All right.
But no, this was what came to mind for him. So
okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, we got a busy show, but let's welcome in the new defensive coordinator for the University of Utah. It's an honor to have Colton Swan on a Monday. Coach, happy Monday. How are you?
Yeah, good. How are you doing, Spence?
I'm doing well. I really appreciate your time. So I'm going to bury the lead and ask you about because Porter was very excited about your promotion for a number of reasons. Namely, you're good at what you do, but also Porter likes to ride horses, and my understanding is that's also a hobby of yours. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair to say. I grew up doing it. I would say, yeah, it's a hobby of mine. I still like to compete and get after it a little bit. So I don't necessarily jump off the horse and steer wrestle anymore, but I still team rope. That's for sure.
Wait, were you at Weber on a rodeo scholarship? Did I read that about you?
Yep, that's correct. I went to Weber State on a rodeo scholarship back in the day and was going to dual sport, was going to rodeo and play football. And football started before rodeo. Went out and walked onto the program and ran a 40 and bench press, and they said, yeah, you're good. Come on, let's go.
Oh, that's awesome.
Never actually rodeoed for Weber State. Just took off from football right there.
Are there any similarities between, what you did on the back of a horse and what you do on the sidelines for a football team?
Yeah, hard work. I know that. Wow. Hard work. But yeah, you got to be smart, you got to be tough, and things come at you pretty quick. And I grew up on a cattle ranch, so we were all around hard work a lot. So I think there's a lot of similarities when it comes to cowboying and football.
There you go. Well, the lead is that I buried. Congratulations. We're all very excited for your promotion. I know it was well-earned, and a lot of people have believed that you've been a rising star in this business for a long time. I want to know where you were when you got the call, like, hey, this gig is yours, and what your reaction was and the reaction of your family when you got the news.
Well, to start off, a few years back, obviously working closely with Scally and just being around him, and he's obviously a phenomenal coach and well-deserved for what he's got going. But, he came to me a while back and said, hey, I know you're a really good coach, and I want to start thinking of you as a guy that could, potentially replace me. And with that in mind, I kind of kept that mindset and work ethic. And when he called me up and told me, I was actually out doing chores at the house and told me, hey, it's time, let's go. And man, what an opportunity to work with Coach Scally, to work as the defense coordinator here at University of Utah. Amazing opportunity for me and my family, and it's grateful and blessed.
So ultimately, the names of defensive coordinators at this institution, Colton, as you know, it's a lofty group. It's a group of guys that are head coaches now. One is in Michigan. I don't know if you heard, but Coach Witt took the Michigan job. One is coaching down at Britain. Well, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think I heard of him.
Yeah. And then obviously Kalani's down at BYU, and your boss, Morgan Scally. Those are the last three defensive coordinators. We could throw in Gary Anderson as well. So you join this list of defensive coordinators that have all gone on to do great things. How does that kind of land with you?
It's awesome. I mean, they're all great men. They come from something very similar to me as what we were talking about earlier when it comes to hard work. I think they really understand the identity of Utah football, and not only that, but from a defensive standpoint. I think that's been a foundation of the program for many years, and I think all of these men that have come before me have just really, if you will, grabbed the bull by the horns and take off with it.
So since I brought it up, and we won't spend a ton of time in the space, but this has been a rather wild news cycle to follow where, in everybody around the community and the ecosystem of Utah football for the past few years have wondered when Kyle was going to decide that he didn't want to do this anymore, or as it turns out, move on to do something else. As Coach Witt has moved on to Michigan now and Ann Arbor, what are your feelings about just the decision that he made, and what are some of the things that you learned from him over the years, and what would you say as he exits stage right?
Well, just number one, just very grateful for the opportunity that he gave me. You know, he took a chance on a small town Idaho cowboy that was coaching football at a smaller school in Weber State, and you know, thankful for what he did and what he's taught me. I've worked for a lot of really good coaches, like you mentioned earlier, and you know, Jay Hill and Ron McBride and Morgan Scally and all these great coaches, and I try to take little pieces from all of them and kind of come up with my own philosophies and different way of how I like to handle the game and the kids and the recruiting and all that stuff. And I can't say enough good stuff about Kyle Whittingham and what he has in store, and I know he'll do great things.
The unfortunate reality of this college football era is that when it comes to, it's the only sport in the world, Coach, as you know, that has free agency every year. It's lunacy. It needs to be fixed, and hopefully at some point it will be. But Utah football benefited by going to New Mexico and grabbing their offensive coordinator, their quarterback, their running back, their wide receiver. And the name of the game now, as Coach Witt just demonstrated, is he was able to grab several coaches that were on staff here and 5 players that either had played for you or were going to play for you, and all very, very talented. I just wonder how you kind of digested that.
Well, it's just, you know, it's just part of the game these days. I really, you can worry about all that, or you can control what you can control. You know, you find yourself getting into a rut if you think about the players that are coming and going. You will definitely want to make sure that you and your program are in a good spot, and you know, control what you can control and focus on, you know, what's going to help University of Utah be the best come kickoff in game one. And you know, it's a lot of recruiting, and like you said, unfortunately, it's recruiting every year, and you know, recruiting your own guys and recruiting guys that are in the portal and high school kids, and it's definitely made it more difficult from that standpoint. But at the same time, you know, just really narrowing your focus on the task at hand, on what the needs are of our program, and you know, everything will take care of itself.
And obviously hitting the ground and doing the best you can to replace the players that are leaving. And so as we move into that space, what you know, Witt always talked about, if you don't have NIL, you don't have anything. And of course, Morgan has discussed the necessity for financial support. Mark Harlan has joined the show quite a bit, and I think I have a good feel as far as what this economic model is looking like for you guys right now. But what's the secret sauce, Coach, as you guys go to try to replace the players that have left? You know, what's the sell to Utah, and are you getting the economic support that you feel like you need to be competitive?
Yeah, it's, you know, NIL is a very important part of it, but at the same time, I don't think it's all of it. You know, you look at really good programs across the country that are winning games that might not have the big NIL ticket that some of the other schools do, and you're asking yourself, okay, how do they do it? How does University of Utah, how does Indiana, you know, how these schools that might not have the biggest NIL out there, you know, what are they going to do? And I think with schools like Utah, we rely on culture. That's a big thing. That's a huge thing with Coach Scally. It was a big thing with Coach Whittingham, and will continue to be a big thing as you win games by your behavior and how you handle your day-to-day tasks. And so that's really what our focus is. You know, there's always going to be guys to replace. It doesn't matter if it's right now today or if it's in 5 years from now. You know, there's going to be butts in those seats, and guys are going to come and guys are going to go, and it's all about, you know, instilling the culture within those guys and making sure they understand what has made University of Utah great and what will continue to do it. And so culture is a big thing, and we as coaches got to do a great job of really teaching that to our guys.
I will ask you about one player's transfer just because that's my job, and you can handle the question however you'd like, and I'll respect your response. But I think a lot of people were surprised to see Celeste Moa join Witt and all the other coaches in Ann Arbor. And, you know, we had Ben Moa, a former Ute, on the station talking about how excited he was that Celeste had decommitted from Tennessee to go to Utah. How was that news received? Were you guys caught off guard by that?
Oh, it's always tough when whatever program you're in or whatever kid it is that you lose that potentially could be a great player. But like I said earlier, the focus is not to be negative or worrisome about that, but to figure out, okay, what it is that we have to do to be great and, attack the problem and make sure that at the end of the day when, that kickoff takes place on game one, that you've got guys that are on the field, that are ready to compete, that, live and abide by the culture. And so, you don't want to spend too much of your time focusing on stuff that's out of your control.
Well said. And I want to go back to the list that I read off earlier of Kyle Whittingham and Gary Anderson and Kalani Sitake and Morgan Scalley and now Colton Swan. And it feels like schematically there are common themes as far as the way the defense is run with all of those men in charge. And I asked Morgan this question. I'll ask you the same. How much of the Colton Swan Utah defense will be adopted principles from the gentleman who I just named, and how much of it will be you kind of putting your own wrinkle on it?
Well, that is a good question, and that's one thing that's made Utah defense so good is there's been this foundation from a schematic standpoint, from recruiting personnel that fits this defense. So that's definitely been a staple and a foundation of what Utah defense has been about over the years, and that's, to be quite honest, a defense that I've actually grown up in and developed in and been, very close to. So my beliefs are very similar to the men that you mentioned earlier. And, you definitely want to have the ability to put your own stamp on things. And when I talk about that, I more look at the guys that we have in the room and figure, okay, what is their skill set? Do they specialize in something? Is there some things that these kids do better this coming year that the kids last year didn't do? And how can we utilize that? So, it's all about the players and not necessarily the scheme. You want to put them in a good spot to make plays. But at the same time, you want them to, have the behavior and have the ability to make those plays. So being able to put a new little wrinkle on a few things, but, the foundation and the schematics of everything that's taken place thus far is very similar to what, we'll be doing.
I want to ask you about Mac. Frank Layden's wife, Barbara Layden, passed away a couple weeks ago, and I attended the service, and Coach Mac was there. And obviously he's getting up there in age a little bit, and we're all kind of hoping that he's doing okay, and it's always great to see him. But it's pretty wild to me, Colton, how many coaches owe him something, whether it's literally giving them their start or promoting them or giving them a second opportunity. And you were up with Mac at Weber State. When I say Ron McBride, what does he mean to just football in the state of Utah?
No, I mean, he's the godfather, really. There's, like you said, there's so many guys that the lineage stems down from him. He gave me an opportunity up there, as did Coach Witt did at Utah. You work hard for a guy like that. You put your head down and grind, and, good things are to happen. And, he rewards coaches for that. I can't say enough good things about Coach McBride. One, that he gave me a really good start in this profession and helped me along the way. And what he means to the state of Utah is so great when it comes to giving kids opportunities. That's the biggest thing about Coach Mack that I think everybody understands for him is he's the least unselfish guy you would ever meet. I mean, he's all about other people, giving them opportunities, helping, watching kids grow and develop. And I think he does the exact same thing for coaches. He's the first one to call and congratulate and stick by your side through, rough times and congratulate you on good times. And he's just an amazing man. I think we all can learn from him.
All right, let's move over to in the name of moving on from the folks that have moved on and moving into the space of who we have in front of us. I want to ask you about the head coach now, Morgan Scalley. And, I thought his introductory presser was just perfect because it was exactly who he is. And it was 45 minutes unscripted of Morgan just kind of being Morgan. And, Colton, this has been a weird news cycle where a lot of fans feel like they're betrayed by Witt taking coaches and players, and so they're mad at him. from a media perspective in this platform, I try to use it to wish Kyle well in Ann Arbor while also believing that Morgan is the right man for this moment, for the next iteration of Utah football. What gives you the most faith in your head coach that Utah football will continue to stay at the level that Whip built it up at as far as the last 21 years?
Yeah, well, first off, that was just a little glimpse of what people will now be getting from Coach Scally. I mean, he's an amazing man. I know young men will want to follow him in his leadership, as did I. And, man, I don't know if there was a dry eye in that presser that he did when he was speaking the other day. It was kind of funny. My brother called me shortly after, and he's like, did you watch that press conference? I said, yeah, I was over there. He's like, man, he's like, I couldn't hold it back. I was crying. I said, you and me both. So he's amazing, and I think that's just a glimpse of what people can expect moving forward, whether it's recruits, whether it's guys in the program right now, and even coaches. You know, every day he's trying to make people around him better, and he's the true son of a leader, and so pretty fired up about this opportunity, and the expectation is to win games, and it's always going to be high. We play tough, hard-nosed football here at University of Utah, always have and always will. You know, we push the envelope. We try to be very innovative and try to be, you know, on the cusp of things, and I think that with the way the coaching staff has been built right now, that, you know, there's going to be some great things happening here at this program.
Colton Swan is with us, the defensive coordinator for Utah football. One of the moments, Coach, that really struck me from that presser was when Morgan started talking about Sharif. And, you know, the relationship that they have, called him his best friend, and told the anecdote after one of the 5-7 seasons, Kalani takes off for Oregon State. And Morgan and Sharif find themselves in the film room, not knowing if they're going to continue to be employed. And Morgan said, I didn't really know what to do, so we just turned on the film and we got to work. But you could tell based off of Morgan's expression that partnership is very special. What does Sharif Shah mean to Utah football?
Well, he means a lot to all of us, not just Coach Scally and not just Utah football, but myself included. He's an amazing man. We're very fortunate to have him in the program. He's an alumni. He's been devoted to the program for many years. I want to say he's, 14, 15 years as the DB coach here at the University of Utah. And so it's really nice to have somebody, obviously, in my corner, helping me through this, stage of my career. And I know he does an amazing job when you look at the development and how he has taken young men and turned them into NFL players and gotten degrees, and nobody watches and governs his guys better, and they truly love him for it. He's a very passionate man, and his love is unconditional. So fortunate to have him in the program, and you can definitely see the relationships that he's built with not only Coach Scally, but with everybody.
One of the things that I loved about Morgan's post-game presser after the Vegas Bowl, because we were in the midst of like the chaos as Kyle had left and who's he going to take and which coaches and players. And Morgan said, look, if you don't think we have a plan, you don't know who we are. And after Jason followed Witt, the Kevin McGivern news came down, and the hope was Kevin's offense, similar to Jason's, but Kevin is his own man, would be enough for some players to come back, namely your quarterbacks, which did, and both Bird Ficklin and Devin Dampier. So, look, all you guys know each other. The coaching fraternity, I know how it is. So I'm quite sure you didn't meet Kevin for the first time when he was hired. But what do you know about him? What have you learned about him? And what should Ute fans expect on the other side of the ball with their new offensive coordinator?
Well, if you remember that Ron McBride lineage that we talked about earlier, Coach McGivern and myself both worked for him at Weber State a long time ago. And so, like you said, it's a fraternity of men that you've either worked with or going to work with, that's for sure. I'm super fired up to have him part of the staff, super fired up to work with him and also against him because iron sharpens iron, and he's got a very potent, very good offense. I've been friends with him for a number of years, and just finally get the opportunity to come back together with him. And like I said, to be able to defend his offense is going to be really, really good for us from a defensive standpoint. He provides a lot of variety difficult situations for a defense. It really makes you have to execute and, fulfill your assignments. And so, I'm looking forward to working with him and against him also in the spring. So fired up for what we have coming from an offensive standpoint.
Before I set you loose, let's get to know some of the new additions to the staff. Anoke Brechterfield was announced a few weeks back, and a lot of these names are new to people around here. He's going to coach your defensive ends. Tell us about your new DN coach.
So Anoke comes to us, and he is. I've actually had the opportunity to work with him as well under Ron McBride. And he's been all over the world, it seems like. I mean, he's coached T.J. Watt over at Wisconsin, Aaron Donald at Pitt. He's got a long list of NFL players that he's, coached. He's been, all over the coaching world from the collegiate level, and we're fired up to get him back here. I know the players, once we announced that he was going to come in and coach our defensive ends, they were excited to see him join the staff and what development and things that he'll be able to do with that position group. He brings a wealth of knowledge. He's an amazing man. He's got an amazing family, and he fits exactly what Utah football is all about, and especially from a defensive line standpoint.
Familiar name was brought back in Derek Odom. For our Ute fan listeners who aren't familiar with Coach Odom, tell us about him.
That's right. Coach Odom comes to us from San Jose. He's was a defense coordinator over there for, I believe, 8 years, and we're fired up to get him. As a lot of people know, because of the name, he did play at University of Utah, so he's an alumni here, very similar to Coach Shaw and Coach Ellis. So we now have 3 guys on the defensive side that are alumni, and fired up to get him. He brings a wealth of knowledge as where he was a defense coordinator previously, and a very good safeties coach, does an amazing job developing young talent. I think the guys in the room are happy to have him, and the guys, that he's recruiting are thrilled to have him as well. So, Dio, like I said, he's an amazing man, amazing family, and we can't ask for a better safeties coach.
The most important question that I haven't asked you is, have you ever ridden a bull? I would imagine you have, Coach, yeah?
Yeah, of course, man.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, if it bucks and it's got hair, you can ride it, right? So that's how we grew up. Yeah, riding bulls. Anything that like I said, anything that would try to throw you off, you're freaking for some reason trying to strap yourself to it and ride it. So yeah, we definitely. I didn't like to make a living doing that. That's for sure. I was kind of more of what we call a timed event guy. I was a tie down roper, team roper, steer wrestler, and that's kind of the end of the arena that I lived on. And then, just being around cattle and horses my whole life. So it's kind of hard habit to kick, that's for sure.
Well, in my mid to late 40s, I can't imagine bull riding is in my future, but I've always watched and respected the craft. So, look, thrilled for you. I'm really thrilled for you. I know how highly regarded you've been for a long, long time, a well-deserved promotion. So thank you so much for your time. We'll set you loose. Have a good week, okay?
Okay, thanks, Spence. Take care.
All right, Colton Swan, the new defensive coordinator at the University of Utah after a number of years coaching the linebackers. It's my type of guy. Tell you what, I'm not sure that you can, you can relate to guys that just want to talk defensive football and talk about steers and bulls and such. My type of guy.
Me too. I'm all in.
Colton Swan is like, it feels like if you had a mentor, a hero, Colton Swan might be that guy. Defensive football coach, loves the cowboying. Just seems like a really good dude.
Yeah, no, I'm all in on that regard. And he's a timed event guy, right? Mm-hmm. So I know everyone loves the bull riding, everyone loves the fireworks at the rodeo.
Yeah,
it's team roping that I'm dialed in on.
Yeah,
so
I love the line: "If it has hair and bucks, we try to ride it." It's great.
It's awesome.
Yeah, thrilled for him, man. Excited to see what he does. And it's such an interesting lineage to consider. Ron McBride. Do we really talk about Ron McBride enough? I swear every coach has some sort of connection, whether Ron hired him, whether Ron promoted him, or whether Ron gave him a second and third chance. I'll have to go look. The majority of the best coaches in our state owe Ron McBride a thank you of one way or one form of fashion. I'm not really sure how to put that, but I feel like most every coach needs to write Ron McBride more thank you letters than they do.
And it's not just guys that played for him or coached under him. He's been a constant in that locker room around that program. If you show up to Ute stuff now, 2025, 2026, he's there, he's involved, he's giving his thoughts, he's encouraging guys on the sideline. It's really cool to see. And as you mentioned, just about everyone connected to the program in the last 40 years. They've got some debt of gratitude to one Ron McBride.
The legend himself, Coach McBride. So good stuff from Colton Swan, the new defensive coordinator for the Utes. We'll catch a break, but more football, pretty much all football today. We'll talk some pro football, get you ready for the Super Bowl between the Patriots and the Seahawks. Big college basketball game in Provo tonight, the number one team in the country in state Arizona. Do some Utah BYU hoops thoughts at about 3:30 today, but we'll catch a break and bring in Robert Turbin, former Utah State running back and played for the Seahawks too. 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. Monday show. Good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. All right, we got Super Bowl matchup to get into after a really, really good game last night. Tough one for the Denver fans, of course. Denver and New England with that storm, the chaos it caused in the second half. But we saw a great game between Seattle and, of course, the Rams, and the Seahawks are back in the Super Bowl. Our next guest won a Super Bowl with Seattle, and he was a hell of a player at Utah State. He's good enough to give us some time on a Monday. Robert Turbin. Hello, Robert. How are you, bud?
Hey, I'm doing great. How about yourself? Thanks for having me.
Doing well. I appreciate the time. So what do you make of this redemption story for Sam Darnold and the team that you won a Super Bowl with back in the Super Bowl as Seattle was able to take care of the Rams?
Well, as far as the redemption story, it's nothing short of amazing, right? I mean, this is the guy that we know that has played for 5 different franchises and was counted out many, many times throughout his career. And I think he's just a great example for any young kid or collegiate student athlete or even a young player in the pros, striving to be great and striving to become a starter and, just striving to be the best that they can be, that, at any point of your career it can happen for you. You just got to keep at it. You got to keep working hard. So it's been an amazing story. He's a great example of triumph for any, athlete wanting to become the best that they can be. And for the team overall, I mean, it's amazing. Here we are 1 game away from bringing the Lombardi Trophy back to the Pacific Northwest. It's a blessing to be a part of this franchise. I've been covering the team, since my retirement and being, still real close with a lot of folks at the facility. So a lot of amazing things going on in Seattle right now.
When did you, Robert, get a feeling that this might be possible for them? No one was talking about the Seahawks preseason. They were not among the favorites to even compete for a conference championship, let alone win a Super Bowl. At what point this year did you start noticing something that maybe something like this could be possible?
When they beat the Rams in Week 16, that's when it first started to sort of come to light for me. I know for a lot of folks, especially in Seattle, who are around the team a lot more, felt that a little sooner in the season. But I needed to see them beat the other teams in the NFC West. If you remember, they lost the opening game against the 49ers in Week 1. They lost the first time out against the Rams. And so, I needed to see them beat those teams in order for me to even consider them the best team in the NFC West. And when they were able to beat the Rams, in a close game, and then finish off the 49ers the second time as well, I thought to myself, this team is for real. They secured the number 1 seed, but it took fairly long for me to be convinced that this team was Super Bowl ready, and here they are in the Super Bowl.
So let's get into what I thought was just a heavyweight bout last night between 2 really good teams. And, it's interesting. The Matt Stafford redemption story was culminated a couple of years ago after McVay grabbed him from the Lions, and they, of course, went on to win a Super Bowl. But in a way, Matt Stafford was kind of dismissed as like this big-armed dude that probably was never going to win anything special when he was with the Lions. But McVay, of course, changed all that. And 52 touchdowns and 9 picks this year. I mean, the Rams are really, really good. What did you make with that back and forth last night and the way that Seattle was able to get that done, even though the Rams kind of brought everything they had?
Yeah, well, you expected a great game, and I think the thing that was most impressive about Seattle is that, every time the Rams had an answer, Seattle responded. When the Rams went up 13-10, Seattle went down and scored a touchdown. They took advantage of the muff punt and got in the end zone, 2 scores, which I think was really the deciding factor, of the game. The Rams had a couple long drives deep in their own territory. They were able to drive the ball down the field and get scores and build some momentum for themselves. And Seattle then was still able to respond. I thought the big question mark was, you're down 4 points, fourth quarter, Rams are driving down, and I think it's about, 3 or 4 or 5 minutes left in the game. It's fourth down. They go for it, and I think you kick the field goal in that situation. It's probably a conversation for another day. But then, you get the ball at the end of the game, and it's a much different strategy that you're approaching your offense with with having to kick a field goal as opposed to, needing a touchdown in that situation. But, listen, it was fireworks all around. You expected that. Seattle was ultimately able to make more plays than the Rams to come out on top.
Got to ask you about a couple of these local storylines. Puka Nacua just became the second player in NFL history to go for 2,000 yards from scrimmage, including the playoffs. The first guy to do that was Cooper Kupp when he did his Triple Crown thing, his MVP year. Watching Puka Nacua kind of evolve after being, I think, a fifth-round draft pick into one of, if not the best wide receivers in the NFL, what stands out most to you, Robert?
Well, I think it's really a testament to how impactful it is to be teammates with such a great player like Cooper Kupp, the impact of having a veteran in the room. A lot of guys come into the league, a lot of quarterbacks come into the league, and they really don't have anyone to lean on at their position to kind of show them the ropes. And I always tell the story of, when I felt like I took my biggest jump in my pro career was actually when I went to the Indianapolis Colts, because I was teammates with Frank Gore. And Frank Gore was sort of towards the end of his career, still very productive, but, he was already solidified as kind of a guy that was going to the Hall of Fame. It was different in Seattle because Marshawn and I, we were such close in age. We were kind of competing against each other a lot, and that's great. But Frank was more, come warm up with me, come work out with me, come in the training room and let me show you some of the routine things that I do to take care of my body. And it was those things that elevated my game overall. And so when I look at Puka Nacua, being able to go into a room that has a guy like Cooper Kupp and then such a savvy offensive mind like Sean McVay, you're destined to excel, and that's what sticks out to me.
While we're in this local space, I wonder, as a guy who played his college ball here, you were an Aggie, what's the general reputation, somebody who played in the NFL, of players that played their college football in Utah? Is there like a common theme? And it's obviously changed because, the Pac-12 inclusion for Utah. Now we've got both Utah and BYU in the Big 12 and Bronco Mendenhall taking over at Utah State. So the game and the footprint has changed since you were here, Robert. But just guys in the NFL that played their college ball in Utah, what does that sound like?
Well, most guys don't know where Utah State is. That's pretty much the common thing. Where's Logan at?
Yeah.
Is the question I get a lot. If I say I played at Utah State, they assume that I'm talking about the University of Utah, and so, but that's part of being, at a smaller school in a smaller conference. Now it's different if I'm talking to guys that went to Boise State or, schools, that were in similar conferences, but that's a common thing. There's no disrespect to it though. I mean, at the end of the day, the one thing about the NFL is you realize everybody's there for a reason. And very rarely is there somebody that is on the team that just quite doesn't belong from a talent standpoint. But more than, I would say more times than not, everybody's there. They're talented enough to be there. Now it's just about putting all the pieces together in order to stay there once you're there. But that's the only common question that I get is, where's Utah State? They don't know where Logan is.
Gotcha. Hey, I wonder what you make of the current state of the college game. We're the flagship home of Utah football, changing of the guard as Kyle Whittingham now lives in Ann Arbor. He's the head coach of Michigan, which still is a sentence that sounds weird to me. Of course, I mentioned Bronco taking over your alma mater, and BYU under Kalani has had a good run. But just the state of the game. It's the only sport, Robert, in the world where they have free agency every year. It's lunacy. Figuring something out is probably paramount there. Of course, players are now able to get paid. I wish you were born a decade later. Sorry about that, but it is what it is. But when it comes to the state of college football, are you bullish on it? Do you think we're headed in the right direction? Or as a former college football star, are you a little bit concerned?
I'm concerned, to answer your question. I've become a little less interested in college football overall. Now, I cover the game. I'm a color commentator at CBS. I've been doing that the last 4 years now, mainly doing the Mountain West, but I've been able to expand in my career and do some Big 12 and some ACC and some other conferences. And it's a great, great gig. I love what I do during the college football season, and it's great to get to know the guys because it's about the guys at the end of the day anyway. The student athletes, I mean, they are who they are. You know, the getting to know the people and even the coaches is I would say, you know, one of the best pieces of it. But, you know, it's in a scary space because because everybody's moving. There's no sense of alumni anymore or appreciation of, you know, being from a certain school and things. There's no pride in that anymore. So it's lost a lot of that sense of what college has always been about. It's about financial gain now. And I get it. Most of us do. But at the same time, there's other elements that, sometimes stick out and are longer lasting than money could ever buy. And we're losing that in college football.
How connected do you stay to your alma mater? You know, Bronco Mendenhall has a proven track record of building programs, sending players to the NFL, and simply winning football games. And year one, I think, was probably a little bit better than most were expecting because I think they had to replace like 80 players or something. So how connected do you stay to Utah State, and what do you make of Bronco Mendenhall taking over up there?
I love Utah State. I've got a great relationship with Bronco Mendenhall. I got a chance to meet Cam Walker when Utah State was on the road against Fresno State this past season. I'm always in Logan as much as I can be, and I'm involved in athletics as much as I can be as well. And it'll always be like that, and I hope it stays like that forever. But my relationship with Utah State is tight, even with the folks that are around Cache Valley. I still, go back, and when I'm in town, we get lunch and dinner and coffee and all the things. And so I love the direction that Utah State is going, and I'm always willing to be a helping hand when I can.
Do you feel like it's possible, because college football is now in this weird place where even like if you're not in the SEC and the Big Ten, you should be concerned. So even Utah and BYU and Big 12 teams and ACC team, Notre Dame is Notre Dame, but Utah State, they're going to make the move to the Pac-12. It's a reimagined Pac-12. You referenced Logan. I'll just say this. I think it's awesome up there. It's a little bit of a hike, so I don't go up there a ton, but every time I've been there for a football game or a basketball game, I quite enjoy Logan. I quite enjoy Cache Valley up there. But do you think it's possible for Bronco Mendenhall to build a team in Logan, Utah that can compete at the highest levels in this era of college football?
Anything's possible. And, I don't think Coach Mendenhall would have taken the opportunity to coach Utah State if he didn't believe that in his own mind. Are there some disadvantages? Absolutely. But are you willing to take on the challenge to iron those wrinkles out? And he has taken on that challenge. Cam Walker, our new athletic director, is willing to take on that challenge. And so as long as everybody's on the same page from an administrative standpoint, anything is possible. Indiana just won a national championship. We've never thought about their football team before. When I went to Utah State, I was naive at the time, but I always believed that we could compete and win a national championship. Did I run all of those stadiums, and did I run Old Main Hill and all those things just to be average, be considered average? Absolutely not. Everybody's in this, hopefully, to be the best that they can be. I know that they are at Utah State. It's a process. May not happen overnight, but I believe absolutely you'll see not only Utah State, but more schools of that nature start to put themselves on the map.
I remember your 96-yard run against the Utes. I mean, you were the WAC Offensive Player of the Year. You set a bunch of records at Utah State. And Hall of Famer up there, deservedly so. If Bronco called you and said, Robert, I need you to talk to this young man, and I need you to tell him why he should come play for me at Utah State and live in Logan, Utah, what would you say?
Absolutely. I'm doing that already.
No, I'm sorry. That was a bad way to ask the question. What I meant was, what would you say to the young man as to why he should go play for Utah State? What's the pitch?
Oh, I see.
My bad.
No, that's a good call. Well, first of all, you get to play for Coach Mendenhall. And the thing about Coach Mendenhall that's great is that he's about the person, the man, the individual. He's about building young men and getting them ready for the world, because obviously football and sport have a lot of similarities, into that. And so, first of all, you get to play for Broncos. Secondly, you get to build something special. One of my big reasons for wanting to go to Utah State was that I wanted to take on the challenge of, this school hadn't been to a bowl game in almost 30 years. It was actually 30 years. When we went to our bowl game in 2011, that was the first time in 30 years. Like, that was a challenge that, I wanted to embrace, and a lot of guys on our team wanted to embrace. And so it's easy to go to the team that already has the players, and they've got, the big money, and they got, the high-paying coaches and stuff like that. But, you have a chance to leave a lasting legacy somewhere where you can actually build a foundation that's going to stand tall for a long time. So that would be my pitch to a young man thinking about going to Utah State.
All right, let's a couple of minutes left. Let's get back to the NFL stuff before I set you loose. I am a Northeast kid, grew up back there, and unfortunately made the wrong call by deciding to cheer for the New York Jets. So as a result, I will never hope that the Patriots become what they were once upon a time, but they've got a really good young quarterback and a really good head coach. As somebody who played in the NFL for 8 years, help us understand, put some context on how hard it is to go 9-0 on the road like the Patriots just did.
Oh, man, it's one of the most difficult things you could do. First of all, it's not even just about the game. Everybody, it's easy to think about, okay, you got the crowd against you, all the stuff, but the other elements are impactful as well. Like, you'll go on the road and some stadiums will have the tiniest locker room on purpose, for the road team. So you got to navigate that. You got to navigate the travel, right? The plane ride and the bus and the hotel. And, these are things that can sometimes get you out of your typical and normal routine that can throw you off, come game time. You have to deal with elements like, some hotels you stay at, the food is disgusting. And so it's like, what are we doing for our pregame meal, in the morning, let alone, the team dinner, the night before. Oftentimes guys will order DoorDash or something like that. And so these are elements that sometimes you have to deal with when you're on the road. And so to go undefeated is really impressive.
All right, let's get over to the matchup here. It opened up as far as the line goes. I think Seattle was initially a 2.5-point favorite, 3-point favorite. It's shot up now. So Seattle's getting 4 on the hook. They're favored by 4.5. Of course, we've got a few weeks to talk about this game, as the game is not until February the 8th. What gives you the most confidence in your Seahawks' ability to go win this thing, and kind of break it down for us? How do you see it playing out?
Well, I do think the Seahawks are going to win this game. And, the thing that sticks out to me about their team is that they have areas of their team that are elite. So we know about the defense. The defense is an elite group, historic group, from a numbers standpoint. Offensively, they've got a wide receiver who I think should be in the conversation for NFL MVP. He's certainly in the conversation for Offensive Player of the Year this year. And so he is an elite player. A lot of folks would say that he's been the best wide receiver in the NFL this season. And so then they have the complementary pieces around him. When you think about the Patriots, they are a well-oiled machine. They're coached well, and they've got really, really good players. But you don't look at any of their position groups and feel like they're elite anywhere. Maybe at quarterback. Maybe look at Drake May and say, he's elite, but he hasn't been elite in these playoffs. And if the Patriots are going to win the game, he's going to have to be the superstar everybody says that he is, the MVP candidate of the NFL this season. So I think that's the key. I just think that the Seahawks just have more in terms of eliteness and the complementary pieces around them to be able to get it done on Super Bowl Sunday.
Since I asked you about Puka, let me ask you about Jackson Smith and Jigba. And Ute fans know him because they played Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. And, of course, Ohio State just produces these wide receivers, man, as you know. His ascension this year, I mean, I think everybody knew that he was special, but I don't know how many people saw this coming because I agree with you. I don't know that it's just he's one of, if not the best wide receivers in pro football. He's one of the best players in the league. What stands out most about the work he's put in?
Well, I just think it's his consistency. But again, remember, the same thing I talked about with
Puka
Nacua
yeah.
is very similar with Jackson Smith and Jigba. When he came into the league, there was DK Metcalf as a teammate. There was Tyler Lockett, as a teammate. And these are two guys, especially Tyler, because Tyler was the veteran of the group. But these are two guys who have been elite at their position. I know Tyler Lockett is going to be one of the all-time, he'll be in the Ring of Honor for the Seahawks one day. I don't know about DK, because he didn't play for the team, all that long. But still, two guys that lead at their position, still making big-time plays in big-time moments, with Russell Wilson as their quarterback, and then obviously Geno Smith. So for JSN to come in and kind of be the third guy and just be learning from these guys day after day, and then be able to burst onto the scene when it was his turn, I mean, you just can't put a price on how valuable it is to have those type of veterans in the room. He's such a consistent player. Nothing gets to him, and it's been exciting to see his development.
I got to know what it's like playing in front of those fans. They call themselves the 12th man. I've been to Seattle several times, but I've never been to a Seahawks game. Tell me about that fan base. What's it like playing in front of them, and your thoughts that now they have a chance to cheer for another Super Bowl winning team?
It's really extraordinary. The fans, how much they impact the game. I mean, you and I, we could be sitting next to each other on the sideline or standing, eating sunflower seeds, whatever it is, and we have to yell literally at one another in order for us to be able to hear each other. It's just a phenomenal scene to be in. And then the other part about the fan base too is just how they kind of treat the players off the field. It's just everyone's so polite. They're so welcoming. It's just that the town itself, they're so helpful. They're willing to educate you on things that you may not know about, in business and tech and other things. They want you to be involved because they have this understanding of life after football. It's just an amazing city and town and fan base, and I'm really lucky to be a part of it.
Got to ask you about one of your former teammates, and I don't know how long Bobby's going to play, but, how many people thought that potentially one of, if not the best linebackers of this generation will come out of Logan, Utah? I would imagine you and Bobby Wagner stay connected, yeah?
Absolutely, man. Bobby's one of my best friends, and I remember when we were rookies, we did an interview, and we did an interview in the VMAC, in the indoor facility there in Seattle, and I think it might have been for Fox or somebody like that. I don't know. But they asked me, what do you expect, out of Bobby in his career? And I said, I expect him to be one of the all-time greats at his position. And so I'm not surprised to see what Bobby has accomplished over his career.
It just seems like you could not watch a game and check a box score, and if Bobby Wagner's playing, he's going to have 10 to 15 tackles no matter how old he is. All right, before I set you loose, I've always wanted to ask somebody this question who knows him. Marshawn Lynch, you were his backup for a number of years. What makes that dude tick? I got to know, because for us on this side of the business, he's always just been really fun to cover and follow, and just a funny dude, and obviously a hell of a player. Last thing, and I'll set you loose. What's Marshawn Lynch like?
Everything you think. He's got all the charisma. He's funny. He keeps things loose. His motivation is just what he's able to do for his family and his hometown and where he's from. And The thing that I always thought was special about him was that he had no weaknesses, none. There was nothing he couldn't do on the field, and so I thought he was a special player from that standpoint, but even a more special person as well.
Well, look, man, I appreciate the time. Your insight is always appreciated. Safe travels. Be well. We'd love to have you back on soon, okay?
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Robert Turbin, now with CBS, doing some games, both on the college and pro side of things. He was an unbelievable player in college. I remember that 96-yard touchdown run he had against the Utes. He was the WAC Offensive Player of the Year, played in the NFL for 8 years, won a Super Bowl in addition to that. So I appreciate Robert's time. Do you realize that Sam Darnold's going to be the first USC quarterback to ever start in a Super Bowl?
Isn't that crazy?
I just read that. That blows my mind.
Yeah, the talent that's gone through that program, it's pretty unbelievable. And, you go back to his start with the Jets, and it didn't look great, but there's always been a sense to me that he's got more in the tank right now. Starting Super Bowl by age 28, I don't know that I would have assumed that to be the case, but it just felt like when he was in New York, he was kind of being misused and obviously didn't have the support around him. There was a lot of jokes about him because he was seeing ghosts and had mono and all the storylines there. But his play on the field and his arm talent, his ability to read defense has always been above average as an NFL quarterback, and he's showing it now.
I've told you this before. He's the only quarterback my Jets have drafted over the past 20 years where I'm like, all right, there's something there. He's the guy. But, of course, it didn't work out. Penny for the thoughts of Minnesota Vikings fans as well with the J.J. McCarthy experience where the kid just can't stay healthy. Now, okay, so I've got the list up. Carson Palmer, Mark Sanchez, Matt Leinart, Caleb Williams, Todd Marinovich, Rodney Peete, Bob Johnson. I mean, a lot of very talented Southern California quarterbacks. I guess I just assumed at some point a USC quarterback had been in a Super Bowl. That blows my mind. Sam Darnold is the first USC quarterback to ever start in a Super Bowl. All right, we'll get back to some football. Our buddy Casey Evans is going to join us. Casey's the new head coach at Olympus. He played safety for the U, so excited for that. Coming up on the other side, Utah basketball went down to Provo over the weekend and hung tough by hitting a bunch of threes. But BYU basketball has a young man that's pretty generationally special. We'll do some college and pro basketball coming up. Then we'll get back to the football for the rest of the show. It's a drive on a Monday. It's good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. Super Bowl 60, Levi Stadium, Santa Clara, comes your way on February the 8th. They're listing it as a 4:30 kick, but if you've ever watched the Super Bowl, the pomp and circumstance beforehand usually pushes it back 20 to 30 minutes. Good stuff from Robert Turbin today to break that game down. Seattle at this point is a 4.5-point favorite. Line to open up at about 3, depending on the sports book, then shot up quickly. Most of the wise guy money going the way of Seattle. Over under 46.5. So we have the Seahawks, we have the Patriots coming up, the final football game of the year. You can hear the game on our radio station. You can watch it on NBC. So we'll get back to some football stuff. Good stuff from Colton Swan today, the new defensive coordinator for the Utah Utes. Some great action last night between the Seahawks and the Rams, and not so much with the Broncos and the Patriots. Did you have a rooting interest? I feel like most people around here pulling for the Broncos and our guy, Garrett Bowles. Were you watching either of the games yesterday with any Cowboy fan in there, Jet fan in here, any emotional ties to either of those games yesterday?
Not entirely. Like you said, there's so many connections to local guys here with the Broncos that that's the one we lean to. One, Bo Nix is a distant cousin of mine.
Wait, what?
So after that, I hopped off the Broncos bandwagon. Yes, my grandfather is a Nix, not super closely related, but I think our great-grandpas are fairly distant cousins.
Bo Nix is a distant cousin of yours?
Yeah, I actually only found that out recently when I found out like his great-grandpa's name and then searched it up using – shout out to our local church here for the study support there.
Did you like go into the genealogy building and look this up?
No, I've got an account. So
okay.
you can if you have the right like connections, you can get all the stuff backdating way back. So
you're also related to like a bandit of sorts back in the day, the cowboy that was robbing everybody. Who was that guy?
So, well, my dad's side of the family are Reddens. And they were like Butch Cassidy associates, distant cousins there. They kind of ran a racket up in Summit County and in the area around there. So that's like my whole genealogy is what you're talking about.
But are you related to the Sundance Kid?
I don't think so.
Only Butch Cassidy.
Yeah.
Because that's the limit of my knowledge. For some reason, that came up topically on air. What we were trying to, I can't even, you're going to have to help me here. It's escaping my memory as to why your relation to Butch Cassidy was helpful in some sort of sports topic or story we were covering.
I can't remember. I mean, Outlaw Distillery was a sponsor.
Distillery.
I think it was probably that's at least what brought it up.
All right. Yeah. I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning. Anyway, you might be one of ones related to Bo Nix and Butch Cassidy. I'm not sure how many people can,
a bunch. All my family.
Bring that into the table that's kind of your genealogy. Yeah, I felt, I don't know, I kind of felt bad for Bronco fans yesterday because you lose your starting quarterback. And then have you ever played in conditions like that? Like, I am watching that game. I'm texting with our guy McKinley because he's there. Josh McDaniels called a play on third down for Drake May to roll out and throw it out of bounds.
Yep.
Like, once those conditions set in, the fact that the Pats even had a 3-point lead, I'm like, dude, this is done. They can't kick field goals. You can't. There was one play where Ramondre Stevenson slipped when Drake May tried to hand the ball off to him, and he's like, oh, okay, he's down. I guess I should run. And then he slipped and fell. Did you see that play?
Yeah, I mean, the conditions were ridiculous. It's really hard to play in. I've actually played in a bunch of those. Now, no higher than like the high school level, of course. But
still, I mean, it's impossible.
But yeah, just to get a grip on the football, to throw the football, to stop right when your momentum's carrying you in snow and ice. It's really tough. We had a state playoff game that I think ended 3-0 or 6-0 maybe with San Juan down in Blanding. And yeah, that's one where you just can't practice for it. You can't replicate it. You just have to find out who has really sure hands, who is able to maneuver it a little bit, and then you kind of lean on them. And usually that includes a bunch of the run game.
It just, I mean, if I feel like if Denver was able to kick that field goal and tie it,
yeah,
it wouldn't have been over until like tomorrow.
Right.
I don't know who's going to be able to score. Like, if they were able to tie it up and send that to overtime, what's the rule as far as, because it's a playoff game.
Yeah, they just keep going now.
You just play until you score.
Yeah.
It could have had like 5 overtimes because nobody was moving the football at all.
Could have been compelling. I don't know that it's like great football, but it is entertaining. I like watching it.
What do you make of, and this is a debate we've had in sports media for a long time, that come playoff time, they should move playoff games to either warm weather cities or indoor arenas so the best team advances. Now, the thing that sucks about that is you take away the home field advantage, and then you take away the opportunity for fans to go cheer for their team. Because look, take it from me as a Jets fan, or you as a Cowboys fan now, the opportunity you get as a fan of an NFL team to watch the team that you love potentially go play for the biggest trophy, unless you are lucky enough to have been born in Boston, or you're one of those people that just decided to pick the Patriots because they were winning every year. And by the way, you suck if that's you. The opportunity you have to watch your team play for like all the marbles, it's generational. It's fleeting. It doesn't happen very often. But if they did move it to an indoor venue or warm weather city, the best team would advance every time. That's a conversation that's been going on for a long, long time. And as a result of the chaos we saw in Denver yesterday, a lot of people debating that.
I'm all the way out on that. Not only are you robbing like the home field advantage, you're taking away from the fans being able to see it, you're taking that away from me being able to watch that on television. And I don't know that I necessarily agree that like the best team always wins on turf. It's going to be more clean. It's going to be a cleaner football game. But I've seen upsets happen on the turf as well, right? It's an argument that to me it's just big dome. That's big dome industry. Try to get more domes built.
Wow. Sticking it to the man, huh? And I want to be clear. I side with where you're at, not because I want to watch that. That was boring yesterday. There was nothing but there have been games played in elements that are really cool.
Yep.
And it was interesting to hear Brady kind of break some of this down where apparently when it snows, it's easier to grip the football and throw the football as opposed to when it's actually raining or sleet. Now, I don't think anybody was gripping the football yesterday at all. But you hear a lot of and Brady wasn't on the call yesterday, obviously, but I've heard a lot of quarterbacks describe like playing in actual snow, if you're playing the quarterback position, is much preferred as opposed to playing in like sleet or wind.
Yeah, it's just about keeping the ball dry, which if it's snowing, you wipe it off in between plays, you set it down and it, maybe get a few snowflakes or whatever. But as long as it's not like pouring or, as you mentioned, icy or whatnot, then yeah, it's just about getting tack on the ball. And it's a little easier in snow than it is if it's just a downpour of water.
Are you going to have the audacity to tell me you enjoyed watching that football game yesterday?
I genuinely had a good time with the second half of that.
You are crazy.
It was fun.
There have been plenty of games in elements that I've enjoyed. That was not one of them. Like I said, Josh McDaniels called a play. Drake, roll out and throw the ball out of bounds. They couldn't move the football. You couldn't even punt it. You couldn't kick a field goal. It was not entertaining.
Maybe I'm watching the snowfall is entertaining to me. I was hoping that storm just like kept coming a little bit west. Didn't, of course.
Yeah, we have 0 snow. My family in the Northeast were bunkered down all weekend, sending me. They had like 8 inches of snow in the backyard of where I grew up. We have nothing.
Yeah. Maybe that's part of it. I was entertained by the actual snowfall rather than the football, but to me, there's part of football that is beautiful that you do have to adjust to the elements. You do have to adjust to some wind and stuff like that. I mean, how many Super Bowls did that like help New England with being able to play at Gillette Stadium where they were used to that kind of thing? I don't know. And listen, that's part of like what I liked growing up. We could welcome these teams from the city and from the desert to our like snowy mountainous fortress, and it was not fun for them to play in it, but for us, we loved it. So it's also, I guess, maybe a little bit of my football identity.
Yeah, and I side more on the just keep it the way it is with the format as it pertains to what these games mean for communities. I don't give like if it rains or snows, yeah, that adds an element that you have to adjust to. But I'm not saying keep it the way it is because the elements are part of the game. It's, in certain cities like Green Bay, Wisconsin, or where, Western New York, where the Bills play, this is the livelihood and the lifeblood of communities like that. Not as much in LA or New York or whatever, when they've got a bunch of different teams or a bunch of different things going on, but the impact of the economy and just the community taking the opportunity for them to watch their team play for a conference championship to go to a Super Bowl is where I side as far as leave it how it is. I just couldn't help but watching that game yesterday through the prism of Bronco fans who've been waiting for a long, long time for this team to get back on the doorstep of maybe doing something special. And you lose your starting quarterback to a random freak injury to his ankle. And then the second half of that game, and look, we can talk about the Sean Payton fourth down decision, kick the field goal, Ute fans, analytics, you know the deal. At the time, I didn't have a problem with it. In retrospect, Sean himself was like, yeah, I probably should have taken the points, but nobody knew the elements were going to be what they were in the second half. Sean can't read the weather, and they had momentum, was 4th and 1. I didn't love the play call. I don't know if Stidham, decided to change it up based off the look. I think you take the points in the situation, but once the elements set in and New England just had their 3-point lead, it was going to take something extremely fluky for that game to go the other way. Now, the night game, the nightcap, was a different story, as we've talked about throughout the course of the show. Seattle beating the Rams, the Seahawks beating the Rams 31-27. Matt Stafford becomes the first quarterback in NFL history to throw for more than 350 yards, 3 touchdowns with no picks, and lose a playoff game. That's never happened. If you missed this from earlier, Sam Darnold has made history of his own. The first USC quarterback to ever start in a Super Bowl. And, when you pull up the list, it's not as like, Matt Leinart was a Heisman Trophy winner, an insanely good college quarterback. He was never a great pro. Mark Sanchez, of course, my Jets, butt fumble, AFC championship, but he was never like a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. Carson Palmer was the name that came to mind. He went to a conference championship game. But in the history of Southern California football, Sam Darnold becomes the first quarterback to start in a Super Bowl, which is pretty wild. So we've got Super Bowl 60. It is Seattle and New England. As I referenced earlier, Seattle is a slight favorite. They opened up as about a 3-point favorite. It's now 4.5. Over under about 46, 46.5. Entertainment purposes only, of course. Porter, did you have a chance to digest the Utah BYU basketball game over the weekend?
Yeah. Another one that was, I guess, more competitive than you may think on paper, but just the reality of that rivalry, right? It's always going to be a little tight, and then obviously what pushes BYU over the hump is just a phenomenal performance by one of the best players that we've seen come through this state, not just BYU, but come through this state in 20, 30 years. What he did is phenomenal. You're seeing exactly why every BYU game there are loads of NBA scouts in the stands.
Arizona in town to take on Brigham Young. There'll be reportedly 30 to 40 scouts in town. Arizona has the Koa Pete kid and a number of other potential pros. I don't think Rob Wright's an NBA guy. I love him as a college point guard. He's just, these smaller guards these days, they don't necessarily last in pro basketball. I think Keba Keita is going to make a living playing basketball. I don't think he's big enough to play in the NBA without the ability to shoot it from the outside. Richie Saunders is a pro. I think he's an NBA guy. That is a testament to Kevin Young, because when Richie first was on campus, I'm like, I don't know, high-energy guy, can shoot a little bit. He has worked his tail off. He is twice the player he was when he came on campus. But this was about one thing, if you missed the game, because to Porter's point, Alex Jensen, Utah's basketball coach, he had some interesting schematic approaches. They were draining the shot clock, and I think it was intentional. The broadcasters kept pointing it out. It was Casey Jacobson on the call, that during the first half, Utah's offense had to rush up a bunch of shots because they were up against it with a shot clock. I'll have to ask Al about this. I think that was intentional. Now, BYU is a really good defensive team. BYU has a lot of athletes that can really guard. Kevin has them playing hard. His defensive scheme is very, very good. And they were mixing up their man and zone looks. And I hate to be critical because Al's my guy. This team does not know how to attack a zone defense. Like when BYU, and this happened here in Salt Lake, when BYU switches to zone, Utah's offense just like stalls. Cut. You can still set screens against the zone defense. Move the ball. The issue is right now, Utah basketball, more or less, not entirely, but more or less has one thing working for them, and that is two very good ball-in-hand dynamic scorers in Terrence Brown and Don McHenry. And those two had some really good moments. Don had a really good first half, but then couldn't get much going in the second half. Terrence Brown's a problem, man. He's a really tough cover. He's a really good guard. Keanu Dawes had one of the best games that he has had as a Ute, hit 4 of 5 threes. Utah got killed on the glass again. BYU got anything they wanted in the paint. And, you know, the lack of rim protection and consistent rebounding is going to kill Utah in Big 12 play. Like, the Okonkwo kid is a decent athlete, but I need to see more from him on the glass. He only had 2 points, but he only had 5 boards. He's probably their best rebounder outside of Keanu, who had 6 boards. But they were able to stay in it because they were knocking down a bunch of threes. Kendall Sanders came off the bench and knocked down a couple threes as well. He actually looked pretty good. So it was the three-point shooting. Utah finished 13 of 21 from 3. Keanu 4 of 5. Terrence 4 of 4. And Don 2 of 3. I mean, you get 4, 8, 10, 9, 10 of 12 from those 3 from 3. I mean, that's how you're going to make it competitive. But if we're honest, it felt like the run from BYU was just inevitable because they weren't really making a lot of threes. I mean, they finished 8 of 19, which is a good percentage. Richie was missing a bunch early, and we'll get to AJ in a minute. Kennard Davis Jr. had a couple wide open looks, didn't knock those down. And so BYU was not relying on the three-point shot while Utah was, yet it was still close. In fact, BYU had a little bit of a lead. And so you felt like what BYU was trying to do offensively was just going to outlast what was a little bit of a fluke with Utah knocking down a bunch of threes. You just can't sustain that over a long portion of the game. At some point, you got to come up with something different. And so many of these possessions turned into just isolation, one-on-one. Terrence Brown, Don McHenry make a play. Keanu Dawes knock down a prayer 3, and let's stay in this thing. But this came down to one thing. The one team has A.J. DeBonsa, the other team does not. This kid, I was trying to think about this as far as all the college players I've watched over the years. And Porter, the name I've landed on as far as the last player we've had here who was this size and could do a bunch of things was Keith Van Horn. I mean, Andre was awesome, but they're different players. Like, AJ's legitimately 6'8", 6'9". Keith was 6'10". Keith could put it on the deck. He could shoot it. He could guard multiple positions. AJ has a higher NBA ceiling, but people might forget Keith Van Horn was the number 2 overall pick in the NBA draft. The last college player we've had that is even in this ecosystem or stratosphere, to me, is Keith Van Horn.
And you're not wrong. What made Keith I guess he had a good pro career, but what made him a much better college player was that the athleticism didn't kind of pass him by yet. Now, he was a good athlete. I think he was a better athlete than a lot of people remember. But in the NBA, it's a little different story, right? And it was some of the wings and power forwards in the league that just, outjumped and outran Keith Van Horn that made him a little less effective at the pro level. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the only prospect that you really look at. Keith was ahead of his time in a lot of ways as a little bit of a unicorn out there, 6'9", 6'10", as you mentioned, can shoot it, can handle the ball. I think AJ is a little bit more fluid of an athlete, and that bodes well for him at the next level because I think while he is a little bit like that kind of player right now, he's got a lot of room to grow, whereas Keith was kind of a polished piece as he was leaving Utah. It's
interesting to consider Keith Van Horn as an NBA player because, as I referenced, he was the number 2 overall pick in the 1997 NBA draft. The Sixers actually drafted him, then traded him to the Nets. Michael Cage was in that deal. That's hilarious. Lucius Harris. Shout out Don McClain for the draft rights to Tim Thomas, Anthony Parker, Jim Jackson. Played at 5-star with Tim Thomas. He was a freak. But that 1997 NBA draft where Tim Duncan was one, remember, that was the Duncan draft. That was everybody had been planned for that for a couple of years. And, of course, Lady Luck shined on the San Antonio Spurs, who, as history has shown, it's actually a hilarious story. David Robinson was like, hey, I'm healthy. I'm ready to come back. They're like, no, you're not. You're not playing this year. Go watch Wake Forest. We want to get that kid. And the rest is history. That was the beginning of a San Antonio Spur stretch, which now is reset with Victor Wembanyama. But Keith was the number 2 overall pick in that draft. Pretty good draft with Tracy McGrady in there. Chauncey Billups in there. Ron Mercer never quite lived up to what we thought he would be. Remember, the Celtics also tanked to try to get Van Horn, and they had 2 bites at the apple that year, and they took Chauncey Billups at 3, and they took Ron Mercer at 6. That was the famous Rick Pitino, Larry Bird isn't walking through that door. Like, they wanted Duncan. It didn't work out. Pitino didn't last in Boston. But Keith was drafted, and then when he was traded, it was the Nets that thought that they had really found the guy that was going to take them next level. Now, when you look at Keith's numbers, he had some injury issues, which kind of hurt a little bit early on, but Keith Van Horn had some really elite years in pro basketball. His second season, he averaged 22 points, 9 rebounds. He was a good three-point shooter, about 32% that year. About 38 minutes a game. He had about a 5-year stretch where you thought, okay, this guy's going to be like a 15-year pro and maybe like a multi-time all-star. But again, some injury issues set in. To Porter's point, the dominant athleticism that allowed him to dominate college basketball and the WAC wasn't enough for him to do the same next level. But Van Horn had some really good years in pro basketball. He was a hell of a player, man. I was a student when he was a player. A lot of fun watching those tournament runs. But A.J. DeBonta is as good, if not better, than most any player we've ever had here. And this train that BYU basketball is on, it's not slowing down anytime soon. They have Arizona tonight, and there is a top 5 recruit in the country who will be there, and reports are he's leaning towards signing to BYU. Now, A.J.'s only going to be here 1 year. He and his father made that very clear. This is a one-and-done thing. He is a 3-level scorer. He has incredible length and athleticism. He can get to the glass and finish with physicality. He can shoot it from the outside. He plays hard. He guards, and he makes the right basketball decisions. It is wildly impressive to watch this kid play. So Utah basketball battles again, but there is a talent gap right now between Utah and BYU basketball that's as big as it's ever been. All right, experience the heart-pounding thrill of PBR, not the beer, professional bull riding, at the Delta Center, February 6th and the 7th. Tune in to the Sean O'Connell Show at noon every day for a chance to win a pair of tickets to the event. More details can be found at ESPN700sports.com. All right, my guy Casey Evans is going to join us, the new head football coach at Olympus, played his college ball at Utah, so keep it here on ESPN 700. All right, Colton Swan, Utah defensive coordinator. We'll call that about 5:30, so about 90 minutes from now. Stay tuned. We do have Super Bowl 60, not today. That's February the 8th, but we have the matchup. But joining me now, a former Utah safety who is now a head coach in football. You thought it was Morgan Scalley. It's Casey Evans. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
It's great to see you, dude. And we were just kind of talking off air. I think last time we talked, we ran into each other on the golf course. You were at Bonnie, playing a little golf. We need to play. I was going to say when the snow melts, but there's no snow. I got an email. Some courses are opening this weekend. But last time I spoke to you, you were coaching, but I'm just going to kind of let you take the space here. When I saw the news that you had taken the head job at Olympus, I just was surprised because I didn't know that was anything that you were interested in. So congratulations. Kind of take us through this process. What's it been like?
Yeah, thanks. It was interesting. When the opportunity presented itself, I was like, well, can I do this and quit my job, my real job? Or can I, do I have to keep my real job and coach? And, and I've coached, in Olympus community since probably 2012, 11.
Yeah.
In multiple sports, and coached my son, his little league team through 8th grade. And, just took a seat back once he got to high school and all those kids his age from 9th, 10th, 11th grade. And then his senior year, the head football coach Olympus asked me to coach, and I jumped at the opportunity and coached the defensive backs and the special teams. And then the coach, Coach Brandon Burt, great guy, he stepped down recently. And the job opened, and I had a lot of people reach out and say, hey, you should apply, and just thought about it. Can I make it work with my job? What can I do? And then can I assemble a good staff? Because just like any, I don't care, college, high school, little league team, you're only as good as those guys around you. And once they opened it up, I applied, got it, and we're 5 days into the job, and it is chaos and, drinking from a fire hose, but I'm loving every second of it. And I expected, it to be like this in the beginning. But I'm honestly excited for the opportunity. I've got more Titan pride than anybody. And
all right,
Olympus, I love the community. There's only a few people that don't like me, but I think about 95% of them do like me.
If you can get 95% on your side, that's quite the accomplishment. I just pulled up your Utah football profile. Dude, your picture, you look like you are 12 years old. What is it about there? And, I spent my formative years elsewhere, but I've lived here, 20, 25 years, and I went to the U. What is it about Olympus that, I feel like Olympus people really love Olympus for some reason?
Yeah, most Olympus people don't move out of the community.
Yeah.
And most people that don't live in the Olympus community want to move in the Olympus community.
Oh, see, this is why people don't like Olympus people. You're proving my point.
But honestly, we're always successful. In basketball, we're dominant, right? We're one of the best programs in the state, if not the best program in the state.
And you played basketball at Olympus, yeah.
I played basketball, played for Coach Barnes. In fact, my son is the first son of a former player for Coach Barnes that played for him last year.
Oh, cool.
And they won back-to-back state championships with
nice.
Jordy Barnes and all the boys, Dutch Dowdell, over Harvard. But in football, we're always good. We only have 2 state championships. They won in 84 and 98. So, we're good.
Yeah.
But we haven't won a state championship in a long time. And but I do think it's just a tight-knit community. I think there's, I think there's a lot of investment by the parents.
Yeah.
I think it's just holiday. Most people, not most, a lot of people have money. I think there's people that are invested in youth sports.
Yeah.
For example, like the Bantam basketball programs and Little League travel baseball teams. Those aren't organized by the coaches. The parents in the community run that themselves.
Yeah.
And so we're never fighting for numbers. We're never fighting for, investment. It's one of those communities that just kind of runs itself in the sports side. And don't get me dance and cheer. That's another level.
Oh yeah.
It's even crazier than I think athletics.
The line that people that live in Olympus don't leave Olympus and people that aren't in Olympus want to be in Olympus, that is wild. And I say this as someone who was raised in New Canaan, Connecticut. You are a snob, Casey. I'm just teasing you. All right. So let's hone in on this. I do want to talk to you about Morgan, and I want to talk to you about Utah football and get your thoughts on the crazy news cycle that we've been dealing with. But tell me the process. Obviously, you got to get the staff you want. And the landscape of even high school sports is 20 times different than it was when I was playing basketball in the 90s and when you were an athlete in the early 2000s. So what's this process like? What are the boxes you have to check, prior to the fall so you're ready to go?
Yeah, I think, number one is obvious, like I said, assembling a staff. And I've got a great staff. A couple legends, Haloti Nada. He's my assistant head coach.
Hell yes.
D-line coach. Former Ute legend, Eric Jacobson.
Nice.
He, from the 80s. He's going to be my defensive coordinator. Grady Marshall. He's my linebackers coach, special teams coach. A handful of other guys, Olympus guys. And so it's really established, just getting a staff done. And then obviously, we started lifting. We hit the ground running. And you're just like any football program, your winter conditioning, your strength program is what gets your program going. But yeah, we'll just do this, and then once May comes, we'll start our spring ball, for lack of a better term, and install our schemes, and we'll do camps in June, camps in July, and they start in practice July 27th. But a lot of the administrative stuff for me is like, I've got a week 3 open, and it's like, who do I play? I got like Northridge, Westlake, or Skyridge. I'm kind of filtering. Like, I don't know. Like, do we want to take on Skyridge? I don't know. Let's go. Or maybe Westlake, maybe Northridge. And so there's all these administrative things, and and actually, even though I'm not a teacher, I'm actually going to teach the first period weightlifting class. So that's just 6 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. every day. Just a commitment and labor of love, and it's. We've got a lot of kids come back, and even this week, it's like the recruiting. I'm constantly meeting with coaches. Utah, Michigan, Oregon were there last week. And today, Idaho State, Fresno State. So it's kind of the recruiting thing right now and helping kids out. But also, I asked the principal, what do you want to see in your new coach? And she mentioned getting your kids more involved in the community and in the school, and maybe just we want to see great communication. To the community, to the parents, to us, to the administration. But ultimately, it's just, and then it's so funny. Like, even I've had so many calls from parents and kids messaging me on Instagram, like, hey, I'm looking to transfer schools. And it's just this whole trickle down effect from college. And everybody thinks the grass is always greener. And I'm talking to like some kid from Vegas texted me. I'm like, I don't even know who you are. I don't know what school you are. Like, and so I'm learning as I go. I'm learning every day.
Haloti is such a good call. Like, you want to walk into a building with Haloti, get in your back. Like, what, 6'4", 3? It probably looks like he could still play, right?
Oh, he does. Except he tore his Achilles playing pickleball. But he's about 80% recovered. But no, he is, and he's even a better dude. Everything you've heard about Haloti is true. He's a great man, and a great mentor to have around the building. And here's a funny story. When I got hired, I said, I want to have somebody in the building. I said, can I hire Haloti to be in the building? And they said, yeah, you're I'm dead. They're like, we're going to hire him as a tracker. He literally got interviewed today to make $14 an hour to be a hall monitor tracker at Olympus High School. So you better get to class, boys, or you're going to see Haloti running at you.
Wait, your players are going to be forced to go to class by Haloti.
Yes.
Well, they're not going to miss any class then. You reference he's a better dude, and he played in the NFL for 12 years, I believe. 13.
Made over $200 million from when I Google searched it.
Yeah. And Pro Bowler, won a Super Bowl. Yeah. But tell me, I've met him, and I think I know his wife. I think I went to school with her.
No, she went to East.
No, did she go to the U, though?
She did, yes.
Yeah. I think I was around the same time. Anyway, I've only met him. I do have an autographed Haloti Nada Ravens jersey that was given to me, which was nice. But what's he like? What's what makes him tick as a person?
Yeah, he's very calm.
Is he?
He's very even keel. He's very approachable. He's got a great personality, great sense of humor. I'm very intense, get kind of loud, animated. It's a kind of a good, yin and my yang. We kind of balance each other. And he's invested. They came down from Park City. His son Sam is to be senior, and he actually had offers everywhere, and he actually just committed to Oregon this past week.
Hell yes.
On his unofficial visit.
That's awesome.
Congrats to Sam. But he is, and he's generous. You should see the guy snowboard. You should see him wake surf on the back of the boat. He's retired, and he has more time, and he knows how to take advantage, and he's always inviting the coaches to come up to lunch and introducing, all his peers to, all his connections up in Park City where he lives. No, he's just a great guy, and he's a great glue, amongst our coaching staff, and he always keeps things positive. And I couldn't ask for a better, mentor that has kind of the reputation to lead a bunch of group of high school kids.
I went to the U with Christina's brother, Jeff. That's how I know her. That's right. Well, that's awesome, man. It's got to be good, not just to have, a guy who played in the league for as long as he did, but somebody did you play with him?
So funny story. We are actually both of class of 2002.
Okay.
He played at Highland. I played at Olympus.
Okay.
We beat their breaks off them 33-0, and I always bring it up.
Oh, wow.
And that's funny. In his high school team, they had Stuart Bradley.
Okay.
He played for the Eagles forever.
Yeah.
Loti. They had a great team.
Yeah.
And anyways, but yeah, we were the same age, grew up playing against each other, like, Little League, and then obviously you went to Oregon, and
yeah,
you redshirted that 1 year and then played 3 years and then went to the league. And,
yeah. That's cool. I didn't realize that history. Yeah, I always say I don't know when the world is ending, but when it does, I'm riding with the Pollies. I'll tell you that much. All right, so I will admit when it comes to the high school football or high school sports landscape, I don't cover it a whole lot because we have a lot to do on the show. We do mostly college and pro football, and so I don't really understand the ecosystem and how it works. I mean, I was a transfer. And at the time, I was treated like a unicorn. Like, wait, you transferred to play somewhere? Yeah, transferred as a senior, and I went and played basketball at a different school. And now I feel like, I'm just going to ask you, is it similar at all to what we're seeing in college football with year-over-year transfers? And are there economic things in play with now kids being able to get paid? I honestly have no idea. What is this ecosystem like now?
Yeah, I think it is changing. Has changed, and you're like oblivious to think if it doesn't. You're oblivious if you don't think, high school coaches are calling kids, or what they're doing is they're having their star recruit message other kids on Instagram. And I've already seen this going on. For example, Corner Canyon coach or Brighton Corner Care League goes to Weber State. A good buddy, a former Ute, Casey Sutera, who was Coach Care's defensive coordinator.
Yeah,
at Corner Canyon, was the Brighton head coach. He's now at Corner Canyon. So, the rumors, all the Brighton kids, there's this big exodus. And, it's kind of in Skyline. They're all going to Skyline. They want to go to Olympus. And so the point is, and I would say schools that are smart, they incentivize. Like, there's schools that will do certain things, like maybe offer, scholarships their senior year, like kind of incentivize, kids. Like, hey, like if you're if you're a Polynesian and you want to apply for the scholarship your senior year, you'll get a $10,000 scholarship. And so they try to find things that help the kids, but also help the school, but also help everybody. And
yeah.
So, and I'm sure there's other things. I mean, I've heard rumors of other things that just don't seem legal or ethical, but it is what it is. But I do think it's, I don't think it's obviously as extreme as the college level, but there are. I mean, you look at the kid. I heard the Diesel Dart, Jackson's little brother. He played at Corner Canyon.
Yeah.
He grew up playing with Bodie Sparrow.
Okay.
Bodie Sparrow, unbelievable, like probably the best football player in the state. He's at Davis. Well, Diesel Dart, I heard, just transferred to Davis. And then I heard the kid that was at Ridgeline, Crew Jones, who's like the number one recruit in the state. I heard he's going to Orem this year. And so
oh my God.
It's unbelievable. I'm kind of like, why didn't they call me? I would have taken them,
Okay, again, and in fact, why don't you get your socials out there? How can people find you? You're on Instagram. I follow you.
Yeah, at Evans Casey.
Evans Casey.
X and Instagram. And
all the socials. We need to get them out there. That's the new name of the game. And pardon me again, this is antiquated understanding. What happened to like boundaries? Because once upon a time, it's like, okay, you live here, and so you go to Skyline. You live here, and so you go to Brighton. You live here, and you go to Olympus. Like, when was that just completely done away with?
So some districts are open enrollment, means it doesn't matter. I'm actually still learning the transfer rules because I truly don't understand them myself. I actually have a meeting with all of my coaches and our athletic director on Saturday morning.
Okay.
So he can explain the rules to us because I actually don't really understand them. I know they did change them 2 years ago. Basically, it became a trend. Kids transferred, and then everybody would use like an excuse, whether it was, I don't know, maybe I'm getting bullied, and then they'd try to deny it, and then people would hire lawyers, and the High School Activities Association just decided if they hire lawyers, we're not going to fight it. And so
so Olympus does have an advantage. I see. Okay.
No, but it's crazy. I mean, but really the rule is like pretty much if you transfer now, you have to sit out 50%, and you have to prove like a full family move. Like you can't, like if people were faking divorces, or not faking, but legally getting divorced and getting remarried.
What?
So they could prove a kid, to get a kid to transfer. I mean, there's all these loopholes, and but they're trying to cover all those loopholes, and they're trying to to make it more fair. But pretty much if you played a varsity sport and you transfer without a legitimate reason, there's like a list of 3 or 4 reasons, you have to sit out 50% of the game. So you have a 10-game football schedule, your player won't be eligible till week 6.
I'm stuck on the fake divorce thing you just dropped. Or maybe, I mean, it's like Louis C.K. says, if you're married, that's great, that's wonderful. If you have a great marriage, that's awesome. If you get divorced, you'll be happier. Maybe it's just like dudes wanted to escape. You're telling me that there are couples that faked a divorce in order for their son to play for a different high school football program?
Yeah, I've heard of people legally adopting their son to their a family member, so they don't have to do a full family move.
Oh my gosh!
I've heard of that. I've heard of all of the above.
I've got an idea, Porter. I've got an idea. Porter was a high school football and basketball player. You know these like Mormon reality shows that have dominated the landscape of pop culture? We need to start a reality show about the landscape of Utah high school football. What do you think?
I don't hate it.
Okay.
And there's we should start a transfer portal and capitalize on it. And, there's already like a Twitter account it's like Utah high school football transfer portal. And it's kind of comical.
Do they call it the transfer portal?
Yes, they do.
They do call it the transfer portal.
I'm pretty sure that's the name of the account. And it's actually pretty accurate. I don't know how this guy gets all the information, but he's like, for example, that's how I found out about the one, the Crew Jones kid that's committed to Oklahoma. Like, this account was like, oh, he's transferred from Ridgeline to Orem, like 2 hours, 20 minutes away. I'm like, okay, good for Orem.
But this is blowing my mind. Because, again, we cover college and pro football, and the college stuff is so chaotic. I just was curious as to how it has spilled over. Casey Evans is with us. He's the new head coach of Olympus. It's the Titans, right?
Yep.
The Olympus Titans football program. And Casey reminded us that people that live in Olympus never leave Olympus. And if you don't live in Olympus, you want to be in Olympus. So that was how we started the conversation. Do you get hit up for because these kids can actually make money, right? Like they can get NIL if they wanted to.
I mean, I guess theoretically they could. I've never heard of that happening. I've heard of like families gaining, like, maybe we're going to pay your apartment rent, or, I've heard of stuff like that. I've never actually heard of a player, getting paid.
You don't have kids hitting you up like, what can you, I'll transfer to play for you. What can you offer me, and asking you for cash?
I don't. And if you want to know, high school football coaches don't make very much money.
Yes. Well, that's one of the other reasons when I saw the news, I was like, anyway, we can leave that aside. I want to ask a question. I'm just going to ask you, and I want you to be careful because I don't want you to do anything that would get you in hot water. Are there programs out there where everybody knows, like, dude, you're not following the rules and you're making it harder for the rest of us? Are there programs out there that are blatantly going around guardrails to undercut the efforts of other people to get the best players to play for them?
Yes.
There is.
Yeah.
Okay. And you know who they are?
Yeah.
And you don't want to say it into that microphone. I wouldn't think so.
It's not Olympus, though. That's for sure.
No, it's not Olympus. Why should, if we have parents out there that have young men that are good football players, why should they play for Casey Evans and Olympus?
I mean, I'm really not trying to come to Olympus, but we are. I mean, we have a great community. We have, like, you come to our home games, you won't find a student section that has more kids. And just the culture. I mean, it's a great culture. It's very supported, with resources. The only thing we don't have, which we hopefully get within a handful of years, is that we need an indoor facility. Most high schools have, like Corner Canyon just opened theirs. All the Canyons district, like South, an indoor practice facility. But honestly, I believe we have an unbelievable coaching staff. We have connections. More connections than I would assume as any program in the state. I mean, recruiting is a big part of what attracts kids. I kind of try to pitch, don't worry about getting recruited and just put your nose down and grind.
Yeah.
If you're good enough, it's going to happen. I mean, it does. And if you're good enough, they will find you. And shoot, Morgan Scalley's kids go to Olympus. His son's about to be a freshman, and they're always at our games. I mean, it's just a great culture, great community, and a great administration, and positive vibes around, and a winning culture.
Is Scalley's kid a baller?
Yeah, he's a baller.
Oh no!
But he's actually the night and he eats and sleeps. I mean, he was in the locker room every one of our games last year.
Huh?
And he's a quarterback, but he's an athlete. And it's funny, Steve Tate actually has coached him his whole life.
Okay. Another friend of the show, Steve Tate.
Steve Tate's handing over me, and he's always played quarterback, and I always talk to him. So, you gonna stick to quarterback? He said, "No, I'm gonna probably switch to defense once I get to high school."
This is Scally's kid.
It's funny.
What's his name?
His name is Andrew.
Andrew Scally.
Okay. And his older daughter was just graduated last year, and she actually goes to BYU, ironically.
I know. Yeah. For the listeners who don't know, Morgan Scally has a daughter that goes to BYU. All right, Casey Evans is live in studio, the new head coach of the Olympus Titans, played his college ball at Utah. His boy is up there as well. You know, it's funny. Morgan, I can remember my freshman year of the U, Morgan's brother Taylor was a senior. Mm-hmm. And he just one day came up to the fraternity house. He's like, "Hey, does anyone want to go watch my little brother play football at Highland?" Mm-hmm. He was a beast of a running back at Highland High School. I mean, he was running dudes over, running around dudes. He was fast. He was strong. He was big. And I always thought he was going to be an incredible college football running back. And he told the story at his presser, you know, is how he changed positions, which is interesting. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, when I think of Morgan High School, I remember he always had concussion issues, and he had that double helmet.
He did.
Back in the day. He had that like extra piece of foam.
Yeah.
That was like to protect his head, and he was seriously the quickest, shiftiest player. And that team was like, I don't know, I just know all high school sports, Utah, but that 97 Highland team was probably the best team like in history. And they lost to Timpview in the semis, and they didn't win the state championship. But Morgan used to tell this story how the shell on his helmet, it would always pop off, and he always thought, like, people thought it was the football, and they would jump on his extra helmet cap and think it was a fumble recovery.
So is Morgan older than you?
Yeah, so he's 2 years. So I was my sophomore year when he was him and Weddle were the starters my sophomore year.
Okay.
I was kind of the next guy in.
Okay.
You know, I would a couple big patches, but yeah, I played with him for 2 years.
Okay.
And you know, it's funny. My senior year, listen to this. My senior year, Morgan was the graduate assistant. Jay Hill was the cornerbacks coach. Derek Odom, the new safeties coach, was the safeties coach.
Okay.
Kalani was the linebackers coach. And then you had Coach Anderson, who was the defensive coordinator. And then Coach Whittingham was the head coach. So it's just kind of funny how it's all come full circle now that my safeties coach is now the safeties coach 20 years later.
Yeah. It is wild. We were talking about this earlier, like Ron McBride and all the coaches that owe Ron a thank you, whether it's giving them their start, giving them a promotion, or giving them a second or third chance. And the coaching community, it's a very tight-knit group. And, you know, we'll get to this coming up on the other side to talk a little Utah football. But again, at Evans Casey, if you're a young man that wants to transfer to play football at Olympus, I wanted to let you know that Porter's favorite artist, Pitbull, is taking over the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on June the 3rd. Tune in weekdays at 1:30 this week for your chance to win a pair of tickets to the show. More details at ESPN700sports.com. Did I tell you I've been approached to film a video for social media dressed as Pitbull to promote this show?
Yeah, it sounds bad.
I will not be doing that. All right, more with Casey Evans coming up on ESPN 700. your home for high school football. As we've always said, I've always said that we need to do more high school football on the show, Porter. You don't book the high school coaches.
You have said that.
I literally have never said that. But my friend Casey Evans is with us. He's the new head coach of the Olympus Titans and reminded us that people that live in Olympus never leave Olympus, and people that don't live in Olympus want to live in Olympus. So a fun, exciting time ahead for our guy who played at the University of Utah. All right, a friend of yours and somebody whose son you will be coaching, Andrew. Andrew's dad got a promotion. I don't know if you heard about this, but Morgan Scalley is now the new head coach of the Utes. Before we get to Morgan, though, we got to talk about Whit. We got to talk about the guy that you played for a while. And, dude, when it comes to the magnitude of stories and how big they are, I always rely on two different kind of North Stars. Number one is how much does the news cover it? Not the sports, but like the news at a TV station. And then how many requests do we get to do radio hits across? I've been on Michigan radio, Nebraska radio, like all these random radio stations across the country. And it's been kind of fun because I feel like Kyle has become a national name in about 2 weeks in a way that he wasn't here in 21 years. Like all these people are getting to know Whit. And look, I know there are a lot of behind the scenes stuff. You're a player and all the relationships, so you handle it however you want. What's it been like to kind of witness this, and what was the reaction of Ute alums when Kyle stepped down, didn't retire, and then a few days later took the Michigan gig?
I think, like all of us, I think everybody was just kind of like, I think we all expected him to step down this year.
Yeah.
And when it came down, like I remember I was at Nibley golfing.
Nice.
At 2:00 that
Uh-huh.
day. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Coach Whit stepping down. I read the first few sentences. I'm like, I'm stepping down? Like it just didn't seem right. I'm like, what's going on? So then you just kind of dig. And at the end of the day, but then the other side of us is, I think everybody's excited to see what Morgan can do. And Morgan's a good friend of mine. I talk to him all the time and talk about the new ideas and what are you going to change? What are you going to do different? And, that has me excited too. But at the end of the day, the whole thing, it just doesn't sit right? It just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Right? But at the end of the day, it's worked out for both of them, and I couldn't be happier for both of them. And both of them are going to succeed, and both of them are going to win a lot of football games, in my opinion. And but there's just that little part of me that just doesn't feel right. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think there are a lot of people across the landscape of this community that feel betrayed. They feel, and look, we can have an adult conversation about this because Utah football pillaged New Mexico last year. They took their offensive coordinator, they took the quarterback, they took the running back, they took the wide receiver, and it worked for Utah football. But Michigan football under Kyle takes 6 coaches and takes 5 players, 4 of whom played a year ago and were really good, one of whom in Celeste was the #1 recruit in the state. He now lives in Ann Arbor. Now, for context, Matt Campbell took 19 players from Iowa State to Penn State, okay? So it could have been worse. Like, when I was doing the media rounds, people asked me, like, which coaches are going to follow Kyle to Ann Arbor? I said, whichever ones he wants to, because it's the Michigan job. And I said the same thing with a player. Like, if Kyle wants a player that he recruited, he has the ability with his resources to get whoever he wants. So what's the reaction been as it pertains to Kyle taking players and coaches? I feel like a lot of people in the community have been a little bit upset with this.
Yeah, but I think in Coach Whit's defense, Coach Whit has been in the same spot for, 32
yeah.
This is the only thing he knows.
Mm-hmm.
This is his coaching circle. This is all he knows.
Yeah.
The players he's recruiting. Last week Michigan did their thing in Utah, and they came to all the high schools and offered every big-time prospect that was on their radar for class of 2027. And I think he's just doing what he knows.
Yeah.
He doesn't know that. He probably isn't, they don't really know the Midwest. And most of his coaches on staff are Utah guys, so they don't know the Midwest and the other, recruiting areas that so they target their players, and they're just, I would imagine, just like anybody, you want to put yourself around people you're familiar with, people you trust, people you're comfortable with. And I think that's more of what he's doing. I don't think he's trying to poach. I don't think he's trying to say, all right, well, I'm going to take everything from you. But it is a good opportunity. I was shocked when I heard Lewis Powell was leaving. But guess what?
No.
Lewis Powell, you couldn't say no. The only one I would have been shocked, if Sharif would have left, I would have been shocked.
Yeah.
But other than that, I thought everybody was fair game.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you can't blame all those coaches and players, for example. I mean, I'm sure Smith Snowden, I'm sure J.J. Buchanan, I'm sure our best defensive player last year that got hurt. Oh my gosh,
John Henry Daly,
our best player. Like, I mean, I'm sure they are benefiting themselves in more than one way.
Michigan has a $20 billion endowment. The CEO of Oracle backs them because his wife went there. Like, the Big Ten had a private equity deal consummated, and Michigan said no because they don't need it. USC said no as well. Michigan has resources that maybe one or two other schools in the country. It is a top 5 job in America. So you can't blame Kyle A for taking it, and you can't blame Kyle for, and look, even if he is poaching, sorry, the landscape of college football is chaos right now. And if you're not ready to capitalize on the chaos, you're going to be left behind. He is the head coach at Michigan now. They're paying him $30+ million in guaranteed money. His job is to make sure they win. But I understand people that feel a little bit hard done too. We can talk about all sides of this, right? Like, I've tried to use this platform and podium to wish Kyle the best because love Kyle, love what he's done here. I mean, if you're in the ecosystem of Utah football, you owe Kyle Whittingham, whether it's a player, whether it's covering the team as the broadcast partner, whatever it is. And also believing Morgan is the right guy for the job right now. Here's my question to you that was asked to me 5 or 6 different times. If Kyle Whittingham, the winningest head coach in Utah football history, wanted to keep coaching college football, why isn't he coaching at Utah?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I actually don't know. I mean, I've heard what I've heard behind the scenes. I've heard, I've heard, basically a lot of important people in the community just wanted to change for no other reason than they just wanted something new. And that's kind of like, I don't know. It's almost compared to like Harbaugh. Why would the Ravens get rid of Harbaugh? But if you look at it, from a different angle, like, okay, I can understand why they'd want to change.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just a change for the sake of change, maybe for some new energy, and who knows? Maybe they value Morgan so much that Morgan maybe he's just continually getting opportunities and interviews, and maybe they're worried to leave him. I would just assume that it was just more of, let's just make a change for the sake of change, and let's just get some new blood, some new energy. But I think there's probably a handful of people that really know, and at the end of the day, I think both Michigan and Utah are in great spots.
Yeah,
and we should all be happy for everyone.
Yeah, Harbaugh, Tomlin, Witt. I mean, it's been pretty interesting, to see these long tenured coaches just decide that it's time for whatever reason. Moving over into the space of Morgan being the guy now. I mean, look, I thought his were you at the presser?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, right in the back.
It was perfect. I mean, it started when the show started, so I had to be here. So I was watching it on YouTube. And, Morgan was a fraternity brother of mine. I've known him forever. And the fact that he didn't prepare anything and just went off the cuff, I thought it was the perfect way to handle it, because even Morgan talked about this. If you're a college football fan, you usually just hear from the head coach and you hear from the coordinators here or there. Morgan's joined the show plenty of times, but I don't think a lot of the community maybe was introduced to him for the very first time, right? So how much of that do you think was just an embodiment of who he is, and how would you articulate the way he is going to steward the Utah football program?
Well, yeah, he is who he is, and he's one of the smartest people I've ever met. He is absolutely brilliant. I always joke, I'm like, Morgan would be the best CEO of a business. He'd be the best football coach. He'd be the best teacher. He's just one of those people that is just unbelievable and self-motivated and, genuinely can build relationships with people. He's affectionate. He's passionate, extremely competitive. He can read a room. He's an unbelievable human being. And so, he's very raw and genuine. I love how open he is, how honest he is.
Yeah.
And I think that's just infectious, and he just makes everyone around him better. He gets the best out of his players. He gets the best out of just everything he does. And so he's just a unique individual.
Yeah.
So being able to see him, just like you said at the press conference, we all left. I was with my buddy, our former Ute legend, Bo Nagy, and we sat in the back and just like we were ready to run through a wall.
Yeah.
And we talked about how he's just coming up with these random quotes from Abraham Lincoln and whatever the definition of culture. And I'm sitting here taking notes on my phone, like, oh my God, I got to use this. Like I got to remember this. And he's just an inspiration to I think to all his colleagues, to his to the alumni, to his former teammates. I think we couldn't be happier for him, and he just has a lot of ideas, and he's not going to make a lot of changes. It's funny. I actually specifically asked him, what are you going to do different? He's like, well, we're going to do more like position-specific weight training, and we're going to practice a little different. We're going to do a lot more, more live reps, but less, thud tempo and more tag-off type stuff. Just things that are just kind of, little things, because they don't need to do a lot of change, right?
Yeah.
What we have is, there's a reason we're, top 25 team in the country perennially, so yeah, I'm just elated for him, elated for the program, and I think every Utah fan probably feels the same.
I swear saying elated, like if you are in the Utah football ecosystem, elated is in your vocabulary.
Yeah, that's funny. There's another term, infallible.
Infallible.
Schemes are time-tested, infallible is another one, but yes.
Here is, this to me was my favorite part of the entire presser. Okay, this to me was when, like I honed in on this, and Morgan said, quote, because everyone, there's like this undercurrent of nervousness. Mm-hmm. Witt spoiled us. He just did. And he set the expectation level up here. And you were part of the teams that built this thing up where now this community expects this team to be awesome every year. And when they're not, it's the outlier, and people are frightened, like, what's going on? Injuries, what have you. We expect Utah football to win 10 games, go to bowl games, compete and win for conference championships, and that's a testament to what you guys built. But Morgan said, quote, change can be difficult for a lot of people. People leave an organization and there's doubt. There are fears, there are questions. Fear has a significant psychological impact on the mind. To the fearful, it's threatening because it means that things may get worse. For the hopeful, it's encouraging because things may get better. And to the confident, it's inspiring because the challenge exists to make it better. I'm confident and excited of the future. That one was like, drop the mic, dude, you're done.
Right. Did he like that? I actually, when he says, like, did he like quote that from somebody? Did he make that up? Do we need to get a like a Tim Tebow, the Florida Gator speech?
Yeah.
Do we need to get a Morgan Scally quote hung up, in the valley somewhere? But yeah, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So inspiring, and he just reads a lot. He's just smart. He just always looking to get better. And
mm-hmm.
I agree with you. That was kind of like, for sure, drop the mic moment, no doubt.
What about him will be similar to the way Kyle ran the thing? And then what are the differences? Because, last week Morgan hopped on Sean's show and gave him like 30 minutes of just awesome content. And I can tell you, every time I've had Kyle on the show, we get a text like, hey, you get 8 to 10 minutes. And Kyle was very nice, okay? And still, I was telling you off air, Kyle actually responds to messages quicker now that he's the Michigan coach than he ever did here as the Utes coach. But I thought Morgan's personality really shined during the presser, and he was just authentically himself with Sean last week. So what reminds you of Kyle, and what makes Morgan Morgan?
Well, I just think the mentality of just putting your nose down and grinding and blocking out the noise. I just think kind of the cliche football, like we are going to, play week to week. We're going to go 1-0 every week. We're not going to look ahead. We're going to just treat every opponent the same. That will remain the same. I don't know. I think something different with Morgan. I think Morgan's probably he'll probably be a little more aggressive. I think as far as scheme wise,
mm-hmm.
I think we'll be more aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
I think typically Coach Witt, he's a great coach for a reason. There's a reason we win, right? You control the ball, you play great defense, and you take care of the football. That's how you win football games.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fun. It's fun to score points. As a fan, it's fun to see teams scoring 50 points. And so I think offensively, you'll see Morgan's personality to be naturally more aggressive. Even Morgan told me, he's like, what are you going to do? He's like, I'm going to sit in the quarterback room. He's like, all these ideas from being a defensive coordinator and what was hard against me, he's like, I want to sit in the quarterback room now and take advantage of those and adapt those in our offense.
Yeah, I like
things
that.
That are hard to scheme.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the biggest things you're going to see is I think we're going to be more aggressive on offense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people watch the Vegas Bowl and Devin throwing it, as many. So I wanted to ask you, do you think the Vegas Bowl was a peek into what will be a more aggressive attack, or schematically was Nebraska just trying to kill the run game because it was one of the top 2 rushing attacks in the country?
Yeah, I think both. I think it's kind of a combination of both.
Okay. So Casey Evans is with us. And again, if you have a kid that's a great football player, send him to Olympus. Casey's the new head coach there. What are your schematic, like offense, defense? What will Olympus football look like this year?
Yeah, we're going to switch to more of like a nickel-based defense and get more athletes on the field. All programs, pretty much everybody runs spread now. So just get more defensive backs, more athletes on the field. I don't know. We're going to be a physical football team. I mean, you have to run the football. I don't care what level of football you are. If you don't run the football and own the line of scrimmage, then you're at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do value. I mean, you're going to be great on defense. We're going to be disciplined on special teams, and we're going to be aggressive on offense. And it's going to be a fun ride. But you also in high school is different though. You got to you don't get to just pick and recruit what kind of players you have. You have to adapt your schemes to the personnel you have. So, for example, we have a lot of good big running backs coming back, tight end type kids. So we'll probably be more, bigger personnel groups, and you just have to adapt. And at the end of the day, it's all about execution. I think schemes and all that is overrated. I think learning to develop relationships with kids, developing trust, getting the best out of them, that's how you win football games.
Do you can I ask you who your returning studs are? Are you okay talking about these?
I don't know. Yeah, I've got a kid named Sam Nada, the great Haloti Nada.
Okay, very nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a kid named Sam Brown. He's a safety.
Okay.
He was All-State last year. I've got a kid named Beckham Allred, big bad running back. I got some good slot receivers. A kid Will Farnsworth, Kempton Rice.
Okay.
Lance Rice. I've got
Lance's boy. Oh, nice.
Yep,
nice.
A couple big linemen, Logan Peterson, Jack Dalton. And then Haloti Nada. I have Haloti Nada's nephew. His name is Haloti Nada.
Oh no, another one. Oh, that's awesome.
And we've got a bunch of good kids, a bunch of great people coming up, and we got the future. I hope is bright, and we're gonna work hard. And if it's not, it's my fault.
There you go. You're learning the coach speak already. Yep. How's your boy? How has his experience been at the U so far?
Yeah, so Jack, he had a great, had fun freshman year. I mean, he did scout team all year. He, it was a grind. That's 6 a.m. lifts multiple times a week.
Sure.
And living at the facility from noon to 6, strictly scout defense, scout special teams. I think kind of humbling for a lot of those kids.
Sure, yeah.
You're always the man. You're the best. Now you just go back to the bottom of the barrel. I mean, I did that, but I think it's a great learning experience. It's humbling, and I think he's actually. They started last week. They're all he's looking forward to spring ball and hopefully getting reps and kind of set realistic goals to try and crack some special teams. Getting the whatever 4-3-4 deep on in the depth chart. But it's fun. He walked on, and they treat the walk-ons. It's crazy. They treat him very well.
Good.
And it's a positive experience, and he's loving it.
Did you lean on him to head to Dad's alma mater?
Yeah, I mean, but that was always kind of his dream too, though. Opportunities to play at smaller schools. And he's like, I'd rather play at a big-time school. And he was a 3-sport athlete too, so he had opportunities, maybe baseball to play. But he ultimately I love football. I'm gonna go play football. And we were just elated when Oregon gave him the opportunity to show up. And nowadays, even with NIL stuff, you almost they are operating on NFL teams, and you have to have a group of players that almost serve as your practice squad.
Yeah,
you have to, because you can put 105 players on scholarship now as opposed to 85, and there's just all these rules are crazy changing. You have to have you got to have a great culture of, because most kids don't really want to be a scout team or be walk-on.
Sure.
But ultimately, you've got to do it and pay your dues, and if you work hard, and hopefully you get your opportunities.
Most importantly, before I set you loose, how's the golf game?
It's very average. I hate to practice.
Well, that's a problem.
I know.
That's a problem.
I hate to practice, but I love to play.
You're new to the game, though, right? You just started. Yeah.
No, I'm exactly. I didn't really start playing until got my first set of clubs 2022.
Yeah.
We're still shooting around the 90s.
Okay, that's fine.
Maybe 95.
No, it's fine. Yeah.
Maybe 85. It's just it's just, you know how it is.
Yeah. No, it was fun playing with you. You got a nice little fade, a little fader game, right?
Yeah, like a cut the ball. And
lean into it. Lean into it, because I am like obsessive of trying to, get out of mine, but a lot of people tell me to embrace it.
I just get too steep. I just got to keep my hands low. And I got my personal friends that are all my golf coaches. And
there you go.
But honestly, I like to golf because I like to hang with my friends.
100%. It's nice to be outside. And do you ever play with Morgan? You ever golf with Morgan?
I've never played with Morgan.
Okay, I know.
He doesn't invite me to the country club.
Yeah, I mean,
now that I'm coaching his son, maybe he could bribe for some playing time.
There you go.
Around at the country club.
I love it, man. Hey, great to see you as always. Congrats on the gig. If I can ever do anything for you, reach out, okay? Awesome, all right, Casey Evans, former Ute, now the head coach of Olympus. Speaking of coaches, in about 35 minutes, Colton Swan will stop by. Final hour of the program on a Monday starts next on ESPN 700. All right, Drive at 5 time, Monday afternoon style. Happy Monday to you. Hope you had a great weekend. Of course, a lot of conversation today about Super Bowl 60 in Santa Clara, which you can hear on our radio station. The Seahawks are going to take on the Patriots. Line opened at about 3.5, 3, depending on which sports book you're talking about. And as of today, it is settled towards Seattle. In fact, a lot of money came in early. And the Seahawks right now are a 4.5-point favorite over the Patriots. The over-under about 46.5 for those of you that are into such things. There's a massive college basketball game in our state tonight. The number one team in America is down in Provo to take on BYU. Arizona at 20-0, 7-0 in Big 12 play, in town to take on Brigham Young. Of course, BYU and Utah over the weekend featured a hot shooting start from the Utes that made it close for about a half plus 5 minutes. And then A.J. DeBonsa did some A.J. DeBonsa things, and the Utes fall to BYU 91-78. Utah basketball has not won in Provo since 2014. And, the talent gap between the two, if you had any questions about whether or not it was real, is very, very sizable. And this BYU basketball train, backed by tremendous financial support, is not stopping anytime soon. There are rumors of a top 5 recruit in state down in Provo to see BYU and Arizona, and there are 30 to 40 scouts to see A.J. DeBonsa take on Koa Pete. Arizona's got a really good team. Obviously, they're undefeated, so that means they're good. And Koa Pete has a chance to be a top 10 pick. A.J. DeBonsa will be battling Darren Peterson and Cam Boozer for the right to be the number one pick in the draft this year. Speaking of Cam Boozer, we've got Duke and Louisville going on right now. So some college basketball on your TV tonight. The Jazz are off tonight. They're going to be back in action tomorrow against the Clippers. Busy night of NBA action. Let's see where you can find NBA basketball tonight. Oh, it's Peacock, because it depends on the night. The NBA watching situation has been pretty chaotic this season. So, of course, a lot of college and pro football on the show today. Utah football hired a new general manager. Joe D'Orazio is now the GM. Shout out to Robert Blecken, who did a great job in his role as Utah's GM. As the story goes, Morgan Scalley and Joe D'Orazio have known each other for a long, long time. 2012, he was a defensive grad assistant under Witt. He coached the tight ends at the University of Chicago. He's been an offensive coordinator. He's an Ivy League guy that has spent some time in the NFL with the Kansas City Chiefs. So this is the modern day of college football. He worked in Philadelphia as an offensive quality control assistant coach and a wide receivers coach under Doug Peterson. And he was a scout team. He was on the offensive scout team for the Philly team that went to the Super Bowl. So he's been with Philadelphia. He's been with the Kansas City Chiefs, and, of course, he's been around college football for quite some time as well. Most recently, he worked for Lincoln Riley as the USC Trojans Director of Football Strategy and Offensive Assistant, which was a hybrid role of coaching a little bit on the field and then putting together some of the business structures behind the scenes. He understands roster construction. He's been in the rooms, of course, USC, a blue blood, using NIL to build rosters. So that's the deal. And Morgan said, remember, after the Vegas Bowl, he said, look, if you don't think we have a plan in place, you don't know us. So some of the staff changes under Morgan Scalley are starting to crystallize a little bit. Of course, we know the staff. And speaking of the staff, Colton Swan, new defensive coordinator, will stop by in a bit. Now, Super Bowl 60, Seattle and New England. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And since the big game is right around the corner, that also means it's your last chance to get into the football action before next season. So close the season out right with Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. You can now find your community on Prize Picks with the new social feeds feature. You can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click. Copy lineups you like or use them as inspiration for your own picks. You can even follow Prize Picks partners like us and tailor fade our picks with just one click. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup, because on Prize Picks, it is good to be right. Started things off today. it was a really fun conversation with Robert Turbin. If you missed that, the Utah State Hall of Famer and former WAC Offensive Player of the Year. And, of course, spent some time with the Seattle Seahawks, won a Super Bowl with Seattle as Marshawn Lynch's backup. We got a good kind of Super Bowl preview and looked back on the games that happened over the weekend. We've kind of been discussing this throughout the course of the show today. Feel bad for my Bronco fan friends. I mean, this is a team that for a long, long time has kind of teased that maybe things are going in the right direction, but you finally get back to a conference championship game. You unfortunately lose your starting quarterback in the most bizarre fashion after beating the Buffalo Bills. And then, of course, Mother Nature does not do anybody any favors. The Patriots, once they took that lead, the majority of the second half yesterday was just unplayable. As we've discussed, Josh McDaniels had an actual play call. He called a play where Drake May was to drift out of the pocket to his left and throw the football out of bounds. Because it was just, let's live to play another day. Let's punt it because nobody could move the ball at all. So a combination of losing Bo Nix and, of course, Jarrett Stidham, who's taken a lot of criticism today. I don't know how much of that is fair. That first touchdown pass, I mean, you know, he looked – the kid has always had a cannon. I mean, he did it at Auburn. At one point, a lot of people thought Jarrett Stidham was going to be the heir apparent to Tom Brady in New England. And the reports are Josh McDaniels wanted him in New England to back up Drake May this year, and Denver just paid him more money because Sean Payton believed that if Bo Nix got hurt, he would be the guy for the job. I just don't know that the criticism is all that fair based off the conditions. Now, was he good? No, he wasn't. I don't think Sean Payton did him any favors with some play calling, namely that fourth down play call. I didn't hate the decision. I just didn't like the play call. But once New England took the lead and the conditions settled in, it felt like it was going to be impossible for Denver to find a way to score. I mean, you couldn't punt. You couldn't kick field goals. It was chaos yesterday afternoon, and certainly overshadowed by what was, and I think will be remembered as one of the most exciting NFC championship games in NFL history, quite frankly. Matt Stafford becomes the first quarterback in NFL history to throw for more than 350 yards, 3 touchdowns with 0 interceptions, and actually lose a playoff game. Puka Nacua just became the second player in NFL history to have 2,000 yards from scrimmage if you include the playoffs. The first person to do that plays for the other team now. His name is Cooper Kupp, who actually caught a touchdown. Jackson Smith and Jigba, big play after big play, but how about the redemption arc and the story of Sam Darnold, who has been moved on from multiple teams and now has become, and I'm going to repeat this stat because it still blows me away. Sam Darnold just became the first USC quarterback in history to start a Super Bowl. It has never happened before, which is pretty wild. But happy for Sam. This is a game where I'll clearly be cheering for Seattle as a Jets fan, anybody but the Patriots. But as I talked about earlier, man, there's a lot to like. Drake May is awesome. Mike Vrabel's a hell of a coach. This is a much more likable New England Patriot group than it was last time they were this good. And it looks like they'll have something to say about this league again for another generation after finding the right coach and the right quarterback. So Super Bowl 60, Santa Clara will feature the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots. And you can hear the game on our station. You can watch it on NBC. All right. All right, final segment of the program for this Monday afternoon. Happy Monday. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. Probably watched some NFL football, maybe some college basketball with Utah and BYU on Saturday afternoon at the Marriott Center down in Provo. BYU with a big one tonight, taking on Arizona, the number one team in the country. The Utes will be back at it coming up this week. Speaking of the Utes, the Alex Jensen Coaches Show comes your way coming up on the other side. Be interesting to hear what Al has to say about the BYU game and what lies ahead for the Utes. It's going to be Oklahoma State and Arizona State, a couple of home games before hitting the road to take on Kansas. This conference is an absolute bear. So incremental improvement is what we're looking for with Utah men's basketball, and I think we saw it for the, first half plus. The game was closer than I think most people anticipated before A.J. DeBonsa took over, because that's what generationally special players do. And that's who BYU has on their roster. And they've got probably two other NBA players, two other pros, I should say. I think Richie Saunders is going to play NBA basketball. I didn't think that when he was a freshman, but he's really improved. There's a lot to like about Rob Wright III. The question is, does he have the size that you're looking for in the modern day and age of pro basketball? But he's a very good player. In a lot of ways, Rob Wright is very key to them, because a lot of people are simply going to blitz and gap AJ just to get the ball out of his hands. Now, AJ has proven to be a very capable decision maker and passer. BYU basketball has a chance to be a top 3 seed in the tournament this year. The question about them is their depth. That's what it comes down to. Like, especially when it comes to primary ball handlers, if Rob Wright gets into foul trouble, my guess would be AJ handles the basketball, because that's probably the most likely logical scenario, because he can. I mean, you watch him, and he is the wing that everybody is looking for. He is LeBron. He is McGrady. He is Kobe. Like, he is that type of player. He's Jason Tatum. He's Donovan Mitchell with 6 extra inches. He is your prototypical NBA player. Have you seen Darren Peterson play? So I was getting into a little debate over the weekend, and the thing with Darren Peterson, there's a lot of high school tape, there's a lot of AAU tape, there's a lot of like high-level tournament tape that you can look at on YouTube. There's not a ton of college basketball proof, because he hasn't played very much, but I always go back to like when Kyrie Irving was a freshman at Duke, everybody was like, he doesn't need to play 1 minute. We know that he's a genius. Hurt his hand, didn't play. I think he played 8 games at Duke. He was the number 1 overall pick. I'm not saying that we need more tape on him. If you had the number 1 overall pick, do you have a lean? Because it feels like at this point it is AJ or Darren Peterson.
Yeah, it's one of those two guys. And the reason it's a conversation is because I think Darren Peterson just turned 19. Like, he's still got a lot of growth, a lot of, still progress to be made. He's got a crazy wingspan, I think close to 7 feet. So he's got all the measurables for kind of the new age guard in the NBA. I don't know that I have a lean one way or the other, but I think that regardless of, I shouldn't say regardless, there is, chance for some guys to make some hay in February and March, and of course in the tournament. But it seems to me like right now it's definitely those guys 1-2 or 2-1, however you switch it up. It'd be hard picking against AJ being in this market and being able to see him up close, but it's definitely an argument as of now.
And I honestly don't know, because oftentimes you talk about need, right? Like, do you need a big? Do you need a ball handler? It feels like both AJ and Darren just fill multiple needs, because they're both these big, long wings that can score and guard multiple positions. I'm pulling up Darren's splits here real quick. He has played in 10 games this year, about 22 points, 5 boards, a couple of assists, 42% from 3, 50% from the line, 82% from the free throw line. AJ in 19 games, 24 points, 7 boards, 4 assists. My goodness. 35% from 3, 56% from the floor, 77% from the line. When you look at AJ's measurables, he's a little bit taller, and I feel like he is like all of 6'8", 6'7", 6'8". Darren 6'5", or excuse me, Darren, yeah, is 6'5", 6'6". I don't know, man. I will say this. I'm not saying Cam Boozer isn't going to be a good NBA player. People talk about this as a 3-headed race at the top. I feel like you got to look at AJ and Darren first. With the way the NBA is played right now, I don't know that Cam is on their level.
And part of that is what you just mentioned, which is need. They fill multiple needs, whereas Cam is going to go to – now, I think he is as sure thing kind of as the other guys. He's a really, really good player, but he might not fill the – a guy that can play the combo guard or, in AJ's case, the 3 or the 4. You kind of know what you have with Cam Boozer, and I think a specific team is going to maybe have him a little higher on their list. And, hey, maybe if a certain team has the number 1 pick, then they'll look at Cam Boozer a little harder. But it just seems to me that the Darren Peterson and A.J. Debonsa are a little more like blanket prospects. It's just whatever you need on the floor, draft that guy. He's going to fill some sort of it.
Yeah, in positionless basketball where so many teams in the league just want to get 5 guys between like 6'6" and like 7 feet that all play, that all have the ability to dribble, pass, and shoot, make plays for others, stretch the floor, spacing, name of the game, beat your man, defense collapses, kick it out for a 3. Cameron Boozer, 19 games. He hasn't missed a game. That's pretty impressive. 24 points, 10 boards, 4 assists, 2 steals. He's shooting 38% from 3, and he's legitimately, 6'10", 6'11". Silky smooth player for sure. But yeah, I don't know. I'll have to watch a little bit more as we approach the NBA draft to get a feel for Darren Peterson and A.J. Debonsa. And if you're a Jazz fan, start watching these prospects because this is where the hope lies. The Jazz are going to play themselves into a spot. I believe they should play themselves into the bottom 4. I know that's a tough ask for a fan base, but the protections with that pick actually go down. The worse you can be, the more likely you have to keep your pick. And the only way you'll keep it for sure is to be a bottom 4 team, because if you have a bottom 4 pick, you can't fall past 7. And if you fall past 8, your pick goes to OKC. But this interesting thing that's occurring with this year's class is AJ Debonsa, of course, living in Provo, playing for BYU. What the Jazz have to find is the Gordon Hayward, Donovan Mitchell player that stays here. They've shown the ability to draft the player. They've shown the ability to develop the player. What they haven't shown the ability to do yet is to retain the player. So is there a thought out there, because AJ is familiar with the state, if the Jazz somehow, some way luck into the top 2 picks and you grab AJ, he's familiar with Utah, maybe he's more likely to stay? I have no idea. The other thing, of course, is Cameron Boozer's father is Carlos Boozer, who didn't just play here for a number of years. The Jazz hired him as a scout, and my guess is that was not by accident. So that's the hope. I think there's been enough growth this year from Keontae. I think we've seen some good minutes from some of the other pieces to believe that next year, if somehow, some way you add one of these pieces to this puzzle, go all in to see what sort of hand we've been dealt. Because the other thing is next year, the draft protections on the pick are gone. So, big one in Provo tonight. BYU and Arizona. Should be a lot of fun. But coming up next, the Alex Jensen Coaches Show. We'll look back on the Utah-BYU game, look ahead to Oklahoma State and Arizona State, a couple of home games as we usher in the month of February. This is the last week of January, which is kind of crazy. All right, so stay tuned for that. Bill Riley, Alex Jensen coming up. Porter, what do we have coming up on a Tuesday edition of the show?
On a Tuesday edition of The Drive, hey, maybe some NBA draft chat. Zach Harper, Richard Smitty Smith. Smitty back on the show after a couple-week hiatus. We'll chat with our guy Dave Fox. And then hoping for our friend Matt Zenitz of 247 Sports to give us a recap of transfer portal and college football chaos over the last couple weeks.
Good stuff. Some breaking news. No one cares about this, but it is the Rising Stars roster for the NBA All-Star Weekend, and Ace Bailey's not on it. Huh. It's a little surprising. No Ace Bailey. No Walter Clayton, but I guess that's not that much of a surprise. All right, we will say goodnight. Special thank you today to Colton Swan, Robert Turbin, and Casey Evans. Mostly football today on the show, as you would expect, to get you ready for the Super Bowl and talk the current landscape of college football in the state. For any of the sound you may have missed, go to the website. It's ESPN700sports.com. Download our mobile app and take us on the go. That ESPN app is available in the App Store, the Google Play Store for free. And then finally, for what we do in our space every afternoon for 4 hours, check out our podcast page. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts, and it's available wherever you get your shows. Subscribe, rate, review, say nice things in the comments, and give us all the stars you can. For Porter, I'm Spence saying goodnight. Alex Jensen Coaches Show coming up on the other side right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700.